Standing before her wasn't the faceless monster she'd prepared to marry. It was Logan Reed, the boy who once shoved her into lockers and laughed while the entire cafeteria watched. The boy who made her invisible, then punished her for existing. Now he wore a tailored suit instead of a varsity jacket, his jaw sharper, his eyes colder. But that smirk? That same cruel smirk that once destroyed her? It hadn't changed at all. And now she belonged to him. If you want to see how Ava survives the man who once broke her, stay until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story reaches. Scat. The church smelled like lilies and lies. Ava Carter stood in the bride's room, staring at her reflection in a full-length mirror that had seen too many happy women. She wasn't one of them. The white dress they'd squeezed her into felt like a costume, expensive lace over cheap desperation. Her hands shook as she tried to adjust the veil for the third time, but it kept slipping. Everything kept slipping. "You look beautiful, sweetheart." Her adoptive father, Robert Carter, stood in the doorway. His suit was too big now. He'd lost weight in the past month, the kind of weight that comes from stress eating your insides. His smile didn't reach his eyes. It hadn't in weeks. "Don't lie to me," Ava whispered. "Not today." Robert's face crumpled for just a second before he forced it back together. He crossed the room and took her cold hands in his. "I'm sorry. I'm so goddamn sorry." She wanted to pull away, wanted to scream that sorry didn't fix anything, that sorry wouldn't save her from whatever waited on the other side of those church doors. But Robert had raised her, fed her, gave her a name when she had nothing, and now he'd gambled it all away to the wrong people. "How much?" she asked. "Ava, how much did you owe them?" Robert's jaw tightened. $2 million. With interest, it's more. $2 million. A number so big it stopped meaning anything. Ava had $17 in her checking account and a closet full of thrift store clothes. She'd been saving for community college. Now she was saving her father's life with her own. "And he agreed?" she asked. "This Logan Reed? He agreed to forgive the debt if I marry him?" "His family did. It's business for them." Robert squeezed her hands. "But I made sure there were terms. You're protected. If anything happens, nothing's protected." Ava pulled her hands free. "Let's not pretend that this is anything but what it is. A transaction." She was currency now, traded to settle a debt she didn't owe to a family she'd never met. Except she had met Logan Reed. She just hadn't told her father that part. 10 years ago, Logan Reed had been the golden boy of Hamilton Prep, star quarterback, straight A's, the kind of handsome that made teachers stutter. Ava had been the scholarship kid with secondhand uniforms and a habit of disappearing into corners. She'd thought if she stayed quiet enough, stayed small enough, she'd be safe. She'd been wrong. It started with small things. Her locker jammed shut with gum. Her lunch tray accidentally knocked to the floor. Laughter following her down hallways. Logan hadn't done all of it himself. He'd had an entire court of followers eager to please him. But he'd been there. Every time. Watching with that amused smirk while Ava's face burned red and her throat closed up. The worst day had been junior year. Someone had started a rumor that Ava had a crush on Logan. She didn't. She could barely look at him without feeling sick. But the rumor spread anyway. It culminated in the cafeteria when one of Logan's friends, Derek, loudly asked if she'd written Logan's name in her diary with little hearts. Ava had been carrying a tray of spaghetti. "Leave her alone," someone had said. Not Logan. Never Logan. But Derek hadn't stopped. He'd grabbed Ava's backpack and dumped it on the floor. Notebooks, tampons, her battered copy of Jane Eyre. Everything spilled out while 300 students watched. And Logan? Logan had laughed. Not a cruel laugh, not even a loud one. Just a quiet chuckle, like Ava's humiliation was mildly entertaining. She'd left Hamilton Prep 2 months later. Transferred to public school. Never looked back. Until today. A knock on the door made her jump. 5 minutes, Miss Carter." 5 minutes until she walked down an aisle toward a man who'd once made her wish she could disappear. 5 minutes until she promised forever to someone who'd never seen her as human. "I can still stop this," Robert said desperately. "We can run. We'll figure something out." "They'll kill you." Ava's voice came out flat. "That's what the man on the phone said, right? Pay up or they'd kill you." Robert didn't deny it. "Then there's nothing to figure out." Ava picked up her bouquet, white roses that matched nothing about how she felt. Let's go. The walk down the aisle took forever and no time at all. The church was nearly empty. A handful of men in expensive suits lined the pews. Logan's people, she assumed. No friends, no family on her side except Robert, who gave her arm one last squeeze before handing her over like a package marked fragile. Handle with care. And then there was Logan. He stood at the altar in a black suit that probably cost more than Robert's car. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair styled perfectly, and a face that could have sold cologne or broken hearts. He looked like money, like power, like every nightmare Ava had tried to forget. His eyes met hers, and something flickered across his face. Surprise? Recognition? It vanished so quickly she might have imagined it. The officiant started talking. Ava heard none of it. Her pulse hammered in her ears, drowning out everything except the feeling of Logan's hand taking hers. Warm, solid, completely wrong. Do you, Ava Marie Carter, take this man? She should say no, should run, should do literally anything except what she was about to do. I do. Logan's fingers tightened around hers for just a second. And do you, Logan James Reed, take this woman? I do. His voice was deeper than she remembered, colder. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Ava's stomach dropped. She hadn't thought about this part, hadn't let herself think about it. But now Logan was stepping closer, his hand sliding to her waist, and she couldn't breathe, couldn't move. The kiss was brief, mechanical. His lips barely touched hers before he pulled back, and Ava realized she'd been holding her breath the entire time. Mrs. Reed, Logan said quietly, and the name sounded like a prison sentence. The reception was worse. It wasn't really a reception, more like a business meeting with champagne. Logan's people congratulated him with handshakes and careful smiles. Nobody looked at Ava except to assess her like livestock. Worth $2 million? Maybe if you squint. She sat at a table in her wedding dress, picking at cake she couldn't taste, while Logan moved through the room like a king greeting subjects. He hadn't spoken to her since the altar, hadn't even looked at her. It was like she'd already stopped existing. Quite a party. Ava looked up. A man stood beside her table, late 20s, with the same dark hair as Logan, but warmer eyes. He smiled, and it actually reached his face. I'm Ethan, he said. Logan's brother. Ava. She didn't know what else to say. I know. Ethan pulled out a chair and sat without asking. I'd say welcome to the family, but that feels a little optimistic given the circumstances. Ava blinked. Nobody had acknowledged the circumstances out loud. Everyone had been dancing around it all day. Logan's not a bad guy, Ethan continued. He's just complicated. He's a criminal. Well, yeah, we all are. Ethan grinned. But there's levels, you know. Logan's more white-collar crime, very sophisticated, practically respectable. He bought me. The grin faded. He paid your father's debt. That's different. Is it? Ethan studied her for a long moment. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone more breakable. He leaned back in his chair. You've got spine. That's good. You're going to need it. Before Ava could ask what that meant, Logan appeared beside the table. He looked at Ethan, and something silent passed between them. Ethan stood. Congratulations, brother. He clapped Logan on the shoulder. Try not to screw this up. Get out, Ethan. Ethan left, still smiling. Logan took his seat, and suddenly the air felt thinner. We're leaving, Logan said. Where? Home. Home. Like she had any idea where that was. Like she hadn't just signed her life away to a stranger. Can I say goodbye to my father? Logan's jaw tightened. No. Why not? Because I said so. Anger spiked through her fear. You can't just... I can. Logan's voice didn't rise, but it cut through her words like a blade. You're my wife now, Ava. That means you go where I say, when I say. We'll have fewer problems if you learn that quickly. Ava's hands curled into fists under the table. She wanted to throw her cake in his face, wanted to scream that he couldn't talk to her like that, couldn't treat her like property. But he could. That was the problem. She'd signed papers, made vows. In the eyes of the law and the syndicate, she belonged to Logan Reed now. Fine, she said through her teeth. Good. Logan stood and offered his hand. Let's go. She didn't take it, stood on her own and followed him out of the church into blinding sunlight. A black car waited at the curb, sleek, expensive, the kind of car that said, "Don't look too closely at what I do for a living." The driver opened the door. Ava climbed in, her dress bunching around her, and Logan slid in beside her. The door closed. The car started moving, and Ava realized with sudden, crushing certainty that she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. They drove in silence for 20 minutes. Ava watched the city slide past the tinted windows, familiar streets giving way to unfamiliar ones, buildings getting taller and more polished. They were heading into money territory, the kind of neighborhood where people didn't ask questions. The car finally stopped in front of a gated estate. Wrought iron, security cameras, walls high enough to keep people in as much as out. The gates swung open, and they pulled up a circular driveway to a house that looked more like a museum. "Welcome home," Logan said flatly. Home. Right. The driver opened the door. Logan got out first, then waited. Not to help her, just to make sure she followed. Ava gathered her dress and climbed out, her heels clicking on marble pavers. The front door opened before they reached it. A woman in her 50s stood in the entrance, gray hair pulled back, sharp eyes, the posture of someone used to being in charge. "Mr. Reed," she said. "Welcome back." "Mrs. Chen." Logan's voice softened slightly. "This is my wife, Ava. She'll need a room prepared." Mrs. Chen's gaze swept over Ava, not unkind but assessing. "Of course, the East Wing. Yes." "Wait. A room?" Ava said. "As in, separate?" Logan finally looked at her. "Did you think we'd be sharing?" Heat flooded her face. I don't. This is a business arrangement, Ava. Nothing more." Logan turned back to Mrs. Chen. "Show her where everything is. Make sure she has what she needs." "Of course, sir." Logan walked away without another word, his footsteps echoing through the massive foyer. Ava stood there in her wedding dress, watching her husband disappear into his own house, and felt something crack open inside her chest. Not heartbreak. She hadn't expected love. But the casual dismissal, the way he'd already filed her away as irrelevant, it stung worse than she'd anticipated. "This way, dear." Mrs. Chen's voice was gentler now. Ava followed her through a maze of hallways, marble floors, expensive art, the kind of wealth that didn't need to announce itself. They climbed a staircase wide enough for 10 people and walked down another hallway until Mrs. Chen stopped at a door. "This will be your room," she said, opening it. The room was bigger than Ava's entire apartment. King-size bed, sitting area, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking manicured gardens. It was beautiful. It was a cage. "The bathroom's through there," Mrs. Chen pointed. "Closet's already stocked with clothes in your size. If you need anything, there's a phone on the nightstand. Dial 0. "How did you know my size?" Mrs. Chen's expression flickered. "Mr. Reed is very thorough." Of course he was. He'd probably had her investigated, measured, cataloged before he ever agreed to this. Ava wondered what the report had said. Ava Carter, age 22, no criminal record, no prospects, easily disposable. "Thank you," Ava managed. Mrs. Chen hesitated at the door. "He's not cruel, you know, just careful." Then she left, and Ava was alone. She stood in the center of the room for a long time, still wearing her wedding dress, still holding the bouquet she'd forgotten to put down. Slowly, she walked to the window and looked out at the gardens, roses and hedges and a fountain that probably cost more than Robert's debt. This was her life now. This beautiful, suffocating prison. Ava set the bouquet on a table and started pulling pins from her hair. They clattered into the sink one by one, a sound like tiny failures. When her hair finally fell loose around her shoulders, she looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. Same face, same hazel eyes, same girl who used to hide in library corners. But not the same. She couldn't be. Not anymore. Ava unzipped the wedding dress and let it pool on the floor. She should hang it up, should care. But instead she kicked it aside and pulled on the first clothes she found in the closet, Jeans and a sweater that fit perfectly because of course they did. She needed to explore, needed to understand the dimensions of her cage. The house was too quiet. Her footsteps echoed no matter how carefully she walked. She passed rooms that looked like showrooms, a library with books nobody read, a dining room with a table for 20, a living room with furniture too perfect to sit on. She found Logan in what looked like an office. He sat behind a massive desk, paperwork spread in front of him, a glass of whiskey at his elbow. He didn't look up when she appeared in the doorway. "Something you need?" he asked. "I want to call my father." "No." "Why not?" "Because I said so." Ava's hands clenched. "You can't keep me from talking to him." "I can, actually." Logan finally looked up, his expression bored. "It's in the contract. No contact with your previous life for 6 months. Your father agreed." The words hit like a slap. He wouldn't. He would, and he did. It was non-negotiable. Logan picked up his whiskey. "You're meant to integrate into this life, Ava. That doesn't happen if you're clinging to the old one. I'm not a dog you're training. No, you're my wife, which means you follow my rules." His eyes met hers, cold and final. "That's how this works." Ava wanted to throw something, wanted to scream, but Logan had already dismissed her again, his attention back on his paperwork, like she was a minor inconvenience he'd already solved. She left before she did something stupid. The next 3 days were a study in isolation. Ava barely saw Logan. He left early, came home late, spent most of his time locked in his office. Mrs. Chen brought meals that Ava ate alone in her room. The house was full of people, staff, guards, men in suits who spoke in low voices, but nobody talked to her. She was a ghost in her own life. On the 4th day, Ava decided she was done being invisible. She'd spent the morning exploring the parts of the house she'd avoided, the locked doors, the wings that seemed off limits. Most of the locks were electronic, but she found one old-fashioned door in the basement that opened when she tried the handle. Inside was a room that didn't match the rest of the house. No expensive art, no marble, just concrete walls, filing cabinets, and a corkboard covered in photos and notes connected by red string. Ava stepped closer, her heart picking up speed. The photos were surveillance shots, people going in and out of buildings, sitting in restaurants, getting into cars. The notes were names, dates, locations, and in the center of it all was a photo of an older man with Logan's same dark hair and sharp jaw. Marcus Reed. Deceased. Deceased. Not died. Not passed away. Deceased. Ava's eyes tracked the red string connecting Marcus's photo to others, business partners, rival families, politicians. One string led to a name circled in black marker, primary suspect. But the name was covered by another photo. Ava reached out to move it. "You shouldn't be down here." She spun around. Logan stood in the doorway, and for the first time since the wedding, he looked genuinely angry. "I was just snooping." Logan crossed the room in 3 strides. "This area is off limits." "You have a board about your father's murder." Ava's voice came out steadier than she felt. "Were you going to mention that?" "Why would I?" "Because I'm your wife?" "You're a legal arrangement." Logan grabbed her arm, not rough, but firm. "You don't get access to my business, Ava. That's not what this is." She pulled free. "Then what is this? You won't talk to me, won't let me leave, won't even pretend I exist. What exactly am I supposed to do here?" "Stay out of my way." The words hung in the air between them, sharp and final. "I know who you are," Ava said suddenly. Logan went very still. "What?" "Hamilton Prep, junior year. You probably don't even remember, but I do." Her voice shook now, months of buried anger rising. "You made my life hell, Logan. You and your friends. And now I'm trapped in your house, following your rules, and you can't even look at me." Something shifted in Logan's face. Surprise, maybe recognition. "Ava Carter," he said slowly, "the scholarship girl." "That's me." A beat of silence, then, "I remember." "Great. So you know exactly how much I don't want to be here. And yet here you are." Logan's expression hardened again. "Stay out of the basement, Ava. I won't tell you twice." He left, and Ava stood alone in the murder room, shaking with adrenaline and fury. But she'd seen the board, seen the names and the strings and the covered photo. Logan was hunting someone, and whatever he was doing, it was dangerous enough to need a wife as cover. Ava went back to her room, but she couldn't stop thinking about the board, about Marcus Reed's face and the red strings connecting him to a web of people, about the covered name. That night, she couldn't sleep. She lay in her enormous bed, staring at the ceiling, and made a decision. If Logan wouldn't tell her what was happening, she'd figure it out herself. The next morning, Ava started paying attention. She listened to conversations between guards when they thought she wasn't there, watched who came and went, noticed that Ethan visited twice, both times leaving Logan's office looking tense. She also noticed the phone calls. Logan took them in his office with the door closed, but sound traveled in the quiet house. She couldn't hear words, but she could hear tone. Anger, frustration, fear, maybe. Something was happening, something beyond just running a crime empire. A week into the marriage, Mrs. Chen knocked on Ava's door with an invitation. "Mr. Reed requests your presence at dinner," she said. "Tonight, 7 o'clock, formal dress." "Why?" "He didn't say, dear." At 7 sharp, Ava descended the stairs in a black dress from the closet. Simple, elegant, not hers. She found Logan in the dining room, already seated at the head of the table. He'd changed into a suit. He looked like he was about to negotiate a merger, not have dinner with his wife. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the chair beside him. Ava sat, her stomach tight with nerves. Dinner arrived, some kind of chicken in sauce that probably had a French name. Ava picked at it while Logan ate in silence. The quiet stretched so long it started to hurt. Finally, Ava couldn't take it anymore. "Why am I here?" "We're married. Married people eat dinner together. We haven't for a week. Tonight we are." Logan set down his fork. "There's an event in 3 days, a gala. You'll attend with me." "Why?" "Because people need to see us together, need to believe this is real." There it was, the truth under all of this. "So I'm, what? Your prop?" "You're my wife." Logan's voice was flat. "And you'll act like it in public." Ava set down her own fork. "What happens if I don't?" "Then the deal is void and your father's debt comes due." Logan met her eyes, and there was no mercy there. "Is that what you want?" No, it wasn't. Robert would die. That was the reality she couldn't escape. "Fine," Ava said. "I'll play the happy wife." "Good." They finished dinner in silence. When Logan stood to leave, Ava stayed seated. "I want something in return," she said. Logan paused. "Excuse me? If I'm going to pretend we're a real couple, I want something. Phone calls to my father once a week." "No." "Then no gala." Logan turned slowly, his expression dangerous. "You don't get to negotiate, Ava." "Apparently I do." Her heart hammered, but she kept her voice steady. "You need me to look convincing. I need to know my father's okay. That's the deal." The silence stretched so long, Ava thought she'd pushed too far. Then Logan pulled out his phone, dialed, and held it out to her. 5 minutes, he said, "and I'm listening to every word." Ava took the phone with shaking hands. It rang twice before Robert answered. "Hello?" "Dad, it's me." "Ava?" Robert's voice cracked. "Oh, thank God. Are you okay? Has he hurt you?" "I'm fine. I'm fine." Ava was aware of Logan watching her. "How are you?" "Don't worry about me, sweetheart. Are you safe?" "Yes. I just wanted to hear your voice." They talked for exactly 5 minutes, careful surface-level conversation that said nothing real. When the timer on Logan's watch beeped, he took the phone back and ended the call. "Thank you," Ava whispered. Logan pocketed the phone without answering and walked away. But Ava had gotten what she wanted. And she'd learned something important. Logan could be negotiated with. He had pressure points, just like everyone else. She just had to find them. The gala dress arrived 2 days before the event in a garment bag that probably cost more than Ava's entire wardrobe back home. She unzipped it to find emerald silk that caught the light like water, the kind of dress that demanded attention. A note was pinned to the hanger in sharp, efficient handwriting. "Wear this, hair up, be ready at 7. L." No please, no question mark, just orders. Ava hung the dress in her closet next to all the other expensive things that didn't belong to her, and tried not to think about what the evening would require. She'd been practicing her smile in the mirror, the kind that didn't reach her eyes but looked convincing enough from a distance. The kind that said, yes, I'm happily married, instead of I'm trapped and counting the days until I can breathe again. The morning of the gala, she found Logan in the dining room reading a newspaper like they lived in a different century. He didn't look up when she sat down, just kept reading while Mrs. Chen poured coffee neither of them would drink. What's the story? Ava asked. Logan turned a page. What story? The one we're telling tonight. How we met. How you proposed. What people should believe about us. We met through family connections. I was charmed by your intelligence. We married quickly because when you know, you know. He finally looked at her over the newspaper. Keep it vague. Don't offer details unless pressed. And if someone asks why they've never heard of me before, tell them you prefer privacy, that you're not interested in the social circuit. Logan folded the newspaper with crisp efficiency. Which, based on the way you've been hiding in your room for 2 weeks, isn't even a lie. The barb landed. Ava felt her jaw tighten. Hard to be social when nobody talks to me. You haven't exactly been approachable. Neither have you. Logan's eyes narrowed slightly. The only indication she'd annoyed him. Tonight, you'll be very approachable. You'll smile. You'll charm. You'll make people believe you're exactly where you want to be. And what will you be doing? Working. He stood, leaving his untouched coffee on the table. The car leaves at 7. Don't be late. He walked out, and Ava resisted the urge to throw something at the back of his head. Instead, she grabbed his abandoned newspaper and scanned the headlines. Local politics, stock market, a small article on page 3 about a warehouse fire in the industrial district. No casualties, cause under investigation. She almost missed the circled paragraph near the bottom of the front page. Someone had marked it in pencil, so faint it was barely visible. Marcus Reed's legacy lives on through his sons, who continue to expand the family's business interests despite the tragedy of his untimely passing last year. Untimely passing. Such polite words for murder. Ava folded the paper and went back to her room to prepare for a night of lying. By 6:30, she was dressed and staring at herself in the mirror with something close to panic. The emerald dress fit like it had been made for her, which it probably had been. Her hair was pinned up the way the note demanded, revealing a neck she usually kept covered. She looked like someone else, someone confident, someone who belonged in Logan Reed's world. The illusion shattered the second she moved and felt how badly her hands were shaking. A knock on the door made her jump. Come in. Mrs. Chen entered carrying a small velvet box. Mr. Reed asked me to give you this. Ava opened it to find a diamond necklace that probably cost more than a car. No note this time, just the necklace, glittering obscenely against black velvet. He has excellent taste, Mrs. Chen said diplomatically. He has excellent control. Ava lifted the necklace anyway, her fingers clumsy on the clasp. Mrs. Chen stepped forward to help, her movements gentle and practiced. May I offer some advice, dear? Ava met the older woman's eyes in the mirror. Please. The men in this world, they see marriage as strategy. But that doesn't mean you can't make it something more. Mrs. Chen finished with the clasp and stepped back. You're stronger than you think. I can see it. Make sure he sees it too. Before Ava could ask what that meant, Mrs. Chen was gone. At 7 sharp, Ava descended the stairs to find Logan waiting in the foyer. He wore a tuxedo that probably cost more than her wedding dress. His hair styled back, looking every inch the dangerous heir to a criminal empire. When he saw her, something flickered across his face, too quick to name. You clean up well, he said. So do you. Ava stopped at the bottom of the stairs, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. Do I pass inspection? You'll do. Logan offered his arm like a gentleman from a movie. Remember, you're madly in love with me. Try not to look like you're attending a funeral. Ava took his arm, and the contact sent a jolt through her she hadn't expected. I'll do my best. The car ride took 20 minutes through evening traffic. Logan spent it on his phone, typing messages with quick, efficient movements while Ava watched the city lights blur past her window. She tried to remember the last time she'd been to anything resembling a gala. Maybe prom, except she hadn't gone to prom. She'd worked a shift at the diner instead, serving burgers to kids in rented tuxedos. Nervous? Logan asked without looking up from his phone. Should I be? Probably. He pocketed the phone and finally looked at her. These people are vultures. They'll smile and compliment you while looking for weaknesses. Don't give them any. What if I don't know the right things to say? Then say nothing. Being mysterious is better than being wrong. Logan's expression softened slightly, or maybe that was just the lighting. And if anyone makes you uncomfortable, stay near me. I'll handle it. It was almost kind, almost protective. Ava didn't know what to do with that. The gala was held at a hotel so expensive it didn't have prices on anything. They walked through a lobby of marble and gold into a ballroom full of people wearing enough jewelry to solve world hunger. A string quartet played something classical, while waiters circulated with champagne and tiny food that probably had French names. Logan's hand found the small of Ava's back, guiding her through the crowd. People turned to watch them, curious stares, calculating looks. Ava felt like an animal in a zoo. Logan Reed! A man in his 50s approached with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. And this must be the mysterious bride we've all heard about. Robert Chen, meet my wife, Ava. Logan's hand pressed slightly against her back. A warning or reassurance, she couldn't tell. Mrs. Reed. Robert Chen took her hand and kissed it like they were at Versailles. You're even lovelier than the rumors suggested. Thank you. Ava's smile felt plastic. That's very kind. How did you two meet? Logan's been so secretive about the whole thing. Through family, Ava said, using Logan's script. We connected at a dinner party. Love at first sight? Something like that. Logan's voice was smooth, practiced. When you meet the right person, you don't waste time. Robert Chen laughed like Logan had said something clever. Well, congratulations to you both. I'm sure Marcus would have been thrilled to see you settle down, Logan. The air changed. Ava felt Logan tense beside her, his hand going still against her back. Thank you, Logan said, his voice carefully neutral. If you'll excuse us. He steered Ava away before Robert could respond. They moved through the crowd, Logan's grip on her back firm enough to hurt. Are you okay? Ava asked quietly. Fine. He grabbed 2 champagne flutes from a passing waiter and handed her one. Drink. Look happy. Ava sipped the champagne and tried not to think about how many calories were probably in it. The bubbles went straight to her head. She'd barely eaten all day. The next hour was a blur of introductions. Business partners, politicians, people whose names Ava forgot immediately. They all said the same things with different words, smiling while their eyes calculated Logan's worth and dismissed Ava as irrelevant. She was standing near an ice sculpture shaped like a swan, nursing her 3rd glass of champagne and wondering if anyone would notice if she hid in the bathroom for the rest of the night, when a woman in red approached. You must be Ava. The woman was beautiful in a sharp, dangerous way. Dark hair, darker eyes, a smile like a knife. I'm Vanessa Marino, old friend of Logan's. The way she said friend made it clear they'd been more than that. Nice to meet you, Ava said, because what else could she say? I have to admit, I was surprised when I heard Logan got married. He always said he'd never tie himself down. Vanessa sipped her champagne, her eyes never leaving Ava's face. But I suppose the right incentive can change anyone's mind. The words were polite. The meaning wasn't. I suppose so, Ava said carefully. How long have you known each other? A while. Interesting, because I've known Logan for 5 years and he's never mentioned you. Vanessa tilted her head. Strange, don't you think? Ava's pulse quickened. Not really. Logan's a private person. Oh, he certainly is. Vanessa leaned in slightly. But between us girls, I'd be careful if I were you. Logan doesn't do anything without a reason. If he married you, it's because you're useful. The second you stop being useful... She didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. Thanks for the advice, Ava said, proud of how steady her voice sounded. I'll keep it in mind. Vanessa smiled. You're tougher than you look. Good. You'll need to be. She walked away, leaving Ava standing alone by the swan, her champagne glass trembling in her hand. Around her, the party continued, laughter and music and people who all seemed to know exactly where they fit. Ava had never felt more out of place in her life. There you are. Ethan appeared beside her, looking relaxed in a way his brother never did. Surviving? Barely. Yeah, these things are brutal. He grabbed a champagne flute from a passing tray. At least the booze is free. Well, technically, Logan's paying, but close enough. Despite everything, Ava almost smiled. Your brother's very popular. He's very rich. People confuse the two. Ethan glanced around the ballroom. Where is he anyway? Talking to someone in a suit. I lost track. Ugh, they're all in suits. Exactly, Ethan laughed. It was a nice sound. Genuine, uncomplicated. You want to get some air? There's a balcony through those doors, way less suffocating. Ava hesitated. Logan had told her to stay close, but Logan had also disappeared into a conversation 20 minutes ago and hadn't looked back. Sure, she said. The balcony was quieter, cooler. The city spread out below them, all lights and movement. Ava leaned against the railing and breathed in air that didn't smell like expensive perfume. Better? Ethan asked. Much. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Ethan said, Can I ask you something? Depends on the question. Why'd you marry him? Ava's hands tightened on the railing. That's personal. I know, but Logan's my brother and well, you're not what I expected. Ethan turned to face her. You don't look at him the way most women do. You look at him like you're afraid he's going to hurt you. Maybe I am. Has he? Not yet. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Logan's not our father. He pretends to be sometimes, but he's not. Dad was hard, unforgiving. Logan's just scared. Scared of what? Of being him. Ethan looked out at the city. Our father died a year ago. Someone shot him in his own home. We still don't know who. Ava thought about the murder board in the basement. Logan's looking for them. Ethan's head snapped toward her. He showed you the board? No, I found it. And he didn't kill you for snooping? Ethan looked impressed. Maybe you're tougher than I thought. Or maybe he just doesn't care enough to be angry. Trust me, if Logan didn't care, you wouldn't be here. Ethan pushed off the railing. My brother doesn't do random. Everything he does has a purpose. You just have to figure out what yours is. Before Ava could ask what that meant, the balcony door opened. Logan stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. Ethan. Inside. Now. Ethan sighed. Nice talking to you, Ava. He brushed past Logan without looking at him. Logan stepped onto the balcony and closed the door behind him. I told you to stay near me. You were busy. That's not an excuse. He crossed the space between them in 2 strides. Ethan talks too much. Whatever he said you're not as scary as you pretend to be. Logan's jaw tightened. He's wrong. Is he? They stood close enough that Ava could see the flecks of gold in Logan's dark eyes. Close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive in cedar. For a second, neither of them moved, then Logan stepped back. We're leaving. The party's not over. It is for us. He took her hand, the first time he'd done that voluntarily, and pulled her toward the door. We've been seen. That's all that matters. The car ride home was tense and silent. Logan stared out his window while Ava tried to process everything that had happened. Vanessa's warning, Ethan's confession, the way Logan had looked at her on the balcony like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. When they pulled up to the house, Logan got out without waiting for the driver and headed straight inside. Ava followed, her heels clicking on marble. Logan, wait. He stopped at the base of the staircase. What? Thank you, for tonight. I know I'm not what you wanted, but thank you for not making it worse than it had to be. Something crossed Logan's face. Surprise, maybe, or confusion. You don't need to thank me for basic decency, Ava. In my experience, basic decency is pretty rare. Logan was quiet for a long moment. Then, did Vanessa say something to you? Nothing I couldn't handle. She's jealous. Ignore her. Jealous of what? You made it clear this isn't real. To other people, it has to be. Logan loosened his tie with sharp, frustrated movements. That's the only way this works. That's the only way you're safe. The word caught her off guard. Safe? From what? From everyone who'd use you to get to me. Logan's eyes met hers, and for the first time she saw something genuine there, something almost like fear. You think I wanted a wife? You think I wanted someone else to worry about? But my father's dead, and whoever killed him is still out there, and the only way to look strong enough that they don't come for me next is to look settled, stable. So I'm armor. Your protection, both ways. Logan started up the stairs, then paused. The Friday calls with your father, they can continue, weekly, 5 minutes. He didn't wait for a response, just climbed the stairs and disappeared into the darkness of the second floor. Ava stood alone in the foyer, still wearing her emerald dress and borrowed diamonds, and tried to understand what had just happened. Logan had given her something, not much, but something, a small crack in his armor. She went to her room and changed out of the dress, hanging it carefully in the closet next to all the other beautiful things that felt like costumes. Then she lay in bed and stared at the ceiling, her mind racing. The next morning she woke to find an envelope slipped under her door. Inside was a phone. Not expensive, just a basic flip phone, and a note in Logan's handwriting. Your father's number is programmed. Use it carefully. Ava sat on the edge of her bed holding the phone like it was made of glass. This was trust. Tiny, conditional, probably revocable, but trust nonetheless. She spent the next few days testing the boundaries of her new freedom. The phone stayed in her nightstand, used only for the Friday calls Logan had promised. But she ventured further into the house, asking Mrs. Chen questions about the staff, the schedule, the rhythms of Logan's life. She learned that he left for the office at 7 every morning, that he took meetings in his study most evenings, that he drank his coffee black and rarely ate breakfast, that he worked too much and slept too little, and that the staff worried about him in the quiet way people worry about bombs that haven't exploded yet. She also learned that Ethan visited more than she'd realized, usually late at night when he thought no one was paying attention. She started listening for his voice, the way it would drift up from Logan's study, sometimes laughing, sometimes tense, always a little too loud. On Thursday night, almost 3 weeks after the wedding, Ava heard shouting. She'd been reading in bed, some thriller from Logan's library that she wasn't really absorbing, when raised voices echoed through the house. Logan and Ethan, their words muffled, but their anger clear. Ava set down her book and crept to her door, opening it just enough to hear. Can't keep doing this. That was Ethan, his voice strained. You're going to get yourself killed. I know what I'm doing. Logan sounded exhausted. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you're obsessed. Dad's gone, Logan. Finding his killer won't bring him back. It'll bring justice. It'll bring more violence. A pause. Does she know? Who? Your wife? Does Ava know what you're really doing? She doesn't need to know. She's living in this house. She's wearing your name. She deserves to know she's in danger. She's not in danger if she stays out of it. You can't control everything. Ethan's voice rose. That's what got Dad killed. He thought he was untouchable. He thought... The sound of something hitting a wall made Ava flinch. Then Logan's voice, low and dangerous. Get out. Logan, I said get out. Footsteps, the front door slamming, then silence. Ava closed her door carefully and went back to bed, but she didn't sleep. She lay in the dark thinking about Ethan's words. She deserves to know she's in danger. Was she? Logan had said she was safe, but Logan also kept a murder board in his basement and made enemies for a living. The next morning, Logan didn't come down for breakfast. Mrs. Chen brought a tray to his study and returned with it untouched. When Ava asked if he was okay, Mrs. Chen just said, He has a lot on his mind, dear. Ava spent the day restless and anxious. She tried to read, tried to watch TV in one of the sitting rooms. Nothing held her attention. By evening, she couldn't take it anymore. She found Logan in his study, exactly where she'd expected. He sat behind his desk in the same clothes he'd worn yesterday, papers spread everywhere, looking like he hadn't moved in 12 hours. Have you eaten? She asked from the doorway. Logan didn't look up. Not hungry. That's not what I asked. Then no. He signed something with harsh, efficient strokes. Was there something you needed? Ava stepped into the room. I heard you and Ethan fighting last night. Logan's pen stopped moving. You were eavesdropping. You were shouting loud enough to wake the dead. It wasn't exactly subtle. Ava crossed her arms. He said I'm in danger. Is that true? No, you're lying. I'm protecting you. Logan finally looked up, and he looked terrible, shadows under his eyes, jaw tight with tension. The less you know, the safer you are. That's not how it works. Ava moved closer to the desk. If there's a threat, I deserve to know what it is. Well, the threat is my father's killer. The threat is everyone who wants to take his place. The threat is this entire world you got dragged into. Logan stood abruptly. And the best way to keep you safe is to keep you separate from it. By locking me in a house and treating me like furniture? By making sure no one thinks you matter enough to hurt. The words hit like a slap. Ava felt her chest tighten. I see. That's not... Logan rubbed his face with both hands. I didn't mean it like that. How did you mean it? I meant that in this world, the people you love become weapons. They become leverage. His voice cracked slightly. My father loved my mother. Everyone knew it. And when someone wanted to hurt him, He stopped, swallowed hard. They what? Ava asked softly. They killed her. Made it look like an accident. But it wasn't. Logan's hands curled into fists. I was 12, Ethan was 8, and my father spent the rest of his life making sure we never cared about anyone the way he cared about her. The room felt smaller suddenly, colder. I'm sorry, Ava whispered. Don't be. Just understand why I can't. Logan looked at her, and his eyes were full of something raw and painful. You're here because of a contract, that's all. If people think it's more than that, if they think I actually care, then you become a target. And I can't. He didn't finish, didn't need to. Ava understood. Logan wasn't cruel, he was terrified. Okay, she said. Okay. I'll stay out of your way. I'll be the invisible wife. Whatever keeps me safe. Ava turned toward the door, then paused. But you should eat something. You look like hell. She left before he could respond. That night, Ava dreamed about her mother. Not her adoptive parents, but her real mother who died when Ava was 5. She dreamed of being small and scared, of hands that couldn't hold her, of love that wasn't enough to protect her. She woke up crying and couldn't stop. The next few days passed in careful silence. Logan went back to avoiding her. Ava went back to being invisible. They existed in the same house like ghosts, never quite touching, never quite talking. Until the night, everything changed. Ava was in the library, the real library, not the showroom one, curled up in a chair with a book she was actually enjoying when she heard the front door slam. Voices in the foyer. Logan's tight with anger, and another voice she didn't recognize. Don't have time for your paranoia, Logan. It's not paranoia. Someone's been asking questions. People always ask questions. That's the business. Not these questions. Ava set down her book and moved to the library door, cracking it open just enough to see into the foyer. Logan stood with his back to her, facing a man in an expensive suit. Next to them stood Ethan, his expression grim. What kind of questions? The man asked. About the night Dad died, about who was in the house, about security footage that should have been erased. The man, older, silver-haired, with a face like weathered stone, exchanged a look with Ethan. You think someone's trying to reopen the investigation? I think someone's trying to cover their tracks. Logan's voice was cold. And I want to know who. You're chasing ghosts, Logan. I'm chasing a murderer. The silver-haired man sighed. Your father had a lot of enemies. It could have been anyone. It wasn't just anyone. It was someone who knew the house, knew his schedule, knew exactly when to strike. Logan turned slightly, and Ava caught a glimpse of his profile, hard, unforgiving. It was someone close. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. What are you saying? The man asked quietly. I'm saying that whoever killed Marcus Reed knew him, maybe even loved him. Logan's hands clenched at his sides. And I'm going to find them, no matter who they are. Ethan shifted uncomfortably. Logan, maybe we should discuss this somewhere more private. Why? Afraid someone's listening? The words hung in the air. Ava's heart hammered so loud she was sure they could hear it. She started to close the door, to retreat before anyone noticed her. But the library floor creaked. Logan's head snapped toward the sound. His eyes found hers through the crack in the door, and for one horrible second, Ava saw everything. The anger, the suspicion, the fear. Then Logan's expression went blank. Ava, join us. It wasn't a request. Ava stepped out of the library on legs that felt like water. 3 sets of eyes tracked her movement as she crossed to the foyer. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice barely steady. "I didn't mean to intrude. I was just... It's fine." Logan's tone was neutral, which somehow made it worse. "This is Victor Castellano. He handles legal affairs for the family. Victor, my wife, Ava." Victor's eyes swept over her, assessing, calculating. "Mrs. Reed, pleasure." "Likewise." An awkward silence fell. Then Victor said, "I should go. We'll continue this conversation later, Logan. In private." He left without another word. Ethan lingered near the door, looking torn. "I'll call you tomorrow," he told Logan. "Don't bother." "Logan, I said don't bother." Ethan looked at Ava, something apologetic in his expression, then left. The door closed. The silence roared. "How much did you hear?" Logan asked. Ava could lie. Should lie. But something told her lies would make this worse. "Enough," she admitted. Logan nodded slowly. "And? And what? What are you going to do with that information?" Ava stared at him. "Nothing. What would I do?" "You could sell it. Secrets have value in this world." Logan's voice was flat, emotionless. "Or you could use it as leverage. Threaten to go to the police unless I renegotiate our contract." I'm not going to do either of those things." "Why not?" "Because I'm not..." Ava's voice rose, then cracked. "I'm not your enemy, Logan. I know you don't believe that. I know you think everyone's out to hurt you, but I'm not." "You don't know what you are." Logan turned away from her. "Go to bed, Ava." "Logan, go to bed." She went, but she didn't sleep. She lay in the dark thinking about what she'd heard, about Marcus Reed's murder, about Logan's certainty that it was someone close, about the way Ethan had looked when Logan said it, uncomfortable, almost guilty. No, that was crazy. Ethan was Logan's brother. He wouldn't... But people killed family all the time, for money, for power, for 1,000 stupid reasons. Ava got out of bed and grabbed the phone Logan had given her. She needed to talk to someone, needed to hear a voice that wasn't full of suspicion and anger. She dialed her father's number. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. "Dad, it's me. Call when you can. I need to hear your voice. I love you." She hung up and stared at the phone, feeling more alone than she had in years. The next morning, everything felt different. Wrong. Logan was gone before Ava woke up. Mrs. Chen said he'd left at 5, which wasn't normal even for him. The house felt emptier, colder. Ava spent the morning trying to distract herself. She read, watched TV, attempted to bake cookies with Mrs. Chen, which ended in burned edges and nervous laughter. At 2 in the afternoon, Ethan showed up. "Is Logan here?" he asked Mrs. Chen. "No, sir. He left early this morning." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Do you know where he went?" "He didn't say." Ethan turned to leave, then noticed Ava standing in the doorway to the kitchen. "Hey. Hey." They looked at each other for a long moment. Then Ethan said, "Can we talk?" They ended up in the library, seemed to be becoming Ava's confessional. Ethan paced while Ava sat in her chair, watching him wear a path in the expensive rug. "Logan's losing it," Ethan said finally. "This obsession with finding Dad's killer, it's consuming him." "Can you blame him?" "No, but I can blame him for dragging you into it." Ethan stopped pacing and looked at her. "You heard what he said last night, about it being someone close." "I did." "He's wrong. He has to be." But Ethan didn't sound convinced. Ava chose her next words carefully. "Do you know who killed your father?" "No, but I know it wasn't me, if that's what you're thinking." "I wasn't." "Everyone is." Ethan's laugh was bitter. "I'm the younger son, the one who never measured up, the one who'd benefit most from Dad being gone. Of course Logan suspects me." "Does he?" "He hasn't said it, but I can see it in the way he looks at me now." Ethan ran both hands through his hair. "We used to be close. After Mom died, we only had each other, but Dad, he had this way of pitting us against each other, making us compete for his approval. That's horrible. That's family." Ethan sat down across from her. Logan was always better at it. Better at being what Dad wanted. I was too soft, too emotional. Dad used to say I'd never survive in this world. And now? Now I'm trying to prove him wrong. But Logan won't let me help, won't trust me with anything real. Ethan leaned forward. That's why I came to talk to you. Ava's stomach tightened. Why me? Because you're the only person Logan talks to anymore. And because I think you might actually care what happens to him. I barely know him. You know him better than you think. Ethan's eyes were earnest, pleading. Help me, Ava. Help me prove to Logan that I'm not the enemy, that we're on the same side. How? Talk to him. Make him see reason. He's going to get himself killed chasing shadows. Ava thought about Logan's face last night, the exhaustion, the paranoia, the bone-deep fear that everyone he knew was lying to him. I'll try, she said, but I can't promise he'll listen. That's all I'm asking. Ethan left, and Ava sat alone in the library thinking about brothers who didn't trust each other and fathers who taught their sons that love was weakness. Logan didn't come home that night, or the next night. On the third day, Ava was starting to panic. Mrs. Chen assured her this was normal. Mr. Reed sometimes stayed at the office when he was working on something important, but Ava had seen Logan's face, had heard the conviction in his voice when he talked about finding his father's killer. What if he'd found them? What if he was lying in a ditch somewhere, bleeding out because he'd pushed too hard? On the fourth night, Ava couldn't take it anymore. She grabbed her phone and called the only person she could think of. Ethan, it's Ava. Logan's been gone for 4 days. Do you know where he is? A pause. Then, no, but I'll find him. How? Leave that to me. Stay at the house. Lock the doors. Don't let anyone in except me or Mrs. Chen. Ethan, you're scaring me. Good. Be scared. It'll keep you smart. He hung up. Ava stood in her room holding a dead phone and feeling terror claw up her throat. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. She locked her door that night, checked the windows twice, lay in bed staring at the ceiling and trying not to imagine all the ways Logan could be hurt. At 3 a.m, she heard it. A crash from downstairs. Voices. Muffled, urgent. Footsteps. Ava grabbed the lamp from her nightstand, the only weapon she had, and crept to her door. She pressed her ear against it, trying to hear. More footsteps. Getting closer. Her doorknob turned. Ava raised the lamp, her heart trying to beat its way out of her chest. The door opened. Logan stood in the doorway, and he looked like he'd been through hell. His shirt was torn. Blood on his knuckles. A bruise blooming along his jaw. Logan! Ava dropped the lamp. What happened? I found him. Logan's voice was rough, strained. I found the person asking questions about my father's death. And? And they confirmed what I already knew. Logan stepped into the room, and Ava saw it then, the devastation in his eyes. It was Ethan. My brother killed our father. The words hung in the air like poison. Ava's breath caught in her throat, her mind struggling to process what Logan had just said. Ethan. Sweet, charming Ethan, who'd been kind to her when no one else was. Ethan who'd warned her about Logan's paranoia just days ago. That's impossible, she whispered. I wish it was. Logan swayed slightly, catching himself against the doorframe. Now that Ava looked closer, she could see he wasn't just bruised, he was barely holding himself together. I need to sit down. Ava moved without thinking, grabbing his arm and guiding him to the chair by the window. He collapsed into it like his strings had been cut, and she could smell copper and sweat and something darker underneath. You're bleeding. She knelt beside him, her hands hovering over his torn shirt, not sure where to touch without causing pain. It's not mine. Most of it. Logan closed his eyes. There's a first aid kit in my bathroom. Second drawer, on the left. Ava ran. Logan's bedroom was at the end of the hall. She'd never been inside, had never been invited. It was exactly what she'd expected. Expensive, impersonal, cold. The bed looked like it had never been slept in. She found the kit and ran back. Logan hadn't moved. His head was tilted back against the chair, his breathing shallow. In the dim light from her bedside lamp, he looked younger, vulnerable, nothing like the man who'd ordered her around for the past month. "Let me see your hands," Ava said, opening the kit. Logan held them out. His knuckles were split, bruised deep purple. She cleaned them carefully with antiseptic, and he didn't flinch once. "Tell me what happened," she said quietly. "I tracked down the man who'd been asking questions. Antonio Vega, small-time enforcer who does dirty work for anyone with cash." Logan's voice was flat, mechanical. "I convinced him to tell me who hired him." "Convinced how?" "You don't want to know." Ava probably didn't. She wrapped gauze around his right hand, her fingers gentle. "And he said Ethan?" "He showed me proof. Wire transfers from one of Ethan's accounts, dates that line up with when my father was killed, instructions to make sure certain security footage disappeared." Logan opened his eyes and looked at her. "My brother murdered our father, and then he pretended to help me find the killer. That's the kind of person we're dealing with." The pain in his voice was worse than any physical wound. Ava finished bandaging his other hand and sat back on her heels. "What are you going to do?" "What I have to." "Logan, he killed our father, Ava. Shot him in his own study while I was upstairs. While Ethan was supposed to be meeting with suppliers across town." Logan's jaw clenched. "But he wasn't across town. He was here, and now he's going to pay for it." Ice ran down Ava's spine. "You're going to kill him. I'm going to make him answer for what he did." "That's the same thing." "Maybe." Logan stood, steadier now. "Stay in your room tonight. Lock the door. Don't come out until I tell you it's safe." He started to leave, and Ava grabbed his wrist without thinking. "Wait, just wait. You're hurt. You're not thinking clearly. If you go after Ethan like this—" "He'll what? Kill me too?" Logan pulled free from her grip. "He's been planning that all along. I was just too stupid to see it." "You don't know that." "Yes, I do." Logan turned to face her fully. "Ethan was always the one Dad overlooked. Always second. He resented me for it. I thought we were past that. Thought we'd built something after Mom died. But he was just waiting, biding his time until he could take everything." Ava searched his face for doubt, for hesitation, found nothing but cold certainty. "Please don't do this," she said. Not tonight. Sleep. Think. Make sure you're absolutely certain before you—" "I am certain." Logan's voice softened slightly. "But thank you for caring, even if you shouldn't." He left before she could respond, closing her door behind him. Ava heard his footsteps retreat down the hallway, heard his own door close. She should lock her door like he'd said, should stay out of whatever was about to happen. Instead, she grabbed her phone and dialed Ethan's number. It rang 6 times before going to voicemail. "Ethan, it's Ava. Don't come to the house. Logan knows. Just don't come. Please." She hung up and paced her room, adrenaline making her hands shake. This couldn't be happening. Ethan couldn't be a murderer. He was too normal, too human. But then again, so had Ted Bundy been. Monsters didn't always look like monsters. Sleep was impossible. Ava lay in bed watching the ceiling and jumping at every sound. Around 5 in the morning, exhaustion finally dragged her under. She woke to pounding on her door. "Ava, open up!" Mrs. Chen's voice, higher than Ava had ever heard it. Ava stumbled out of bed and unlocked the door. Mrs. Chen stood in the hallway, her usually perfect composure shattered. "What's wrong?" "Mr. Reed is gone. His bed wasn't slept in. His car's missing." Mrs. Chen's hands twisted together. "And there's blood in the foyer." Ava's stomach dropped. "Show me." The blood was near the front door. Not a lot, but enough. Dark drops on white marble, leading toward the driveway. Ava followed the trail outside into morning sunlight that felt obscene given the circumstances. Logan's car was gone. So was one of the security vehicles, and there, barely visible on the driveway pavement, were more blood drops leading toward the street. "Call him," Ava said. "Call Logan right now." Mrs. Chen pulled out her phone with shaking hands. It rang, and rang, and rang. No answer. "Try Ethan," Ava said, though her gut told her it was pointless. Ethan didn't answer either. Ava stood in the driveway in her pajamas, watching traffic move past the gates like the world wasn't ending, and tried to think. Logan had gone after Ethan. That much was clear. But where? Ethan had his own place across town. Or maybe they'd gone somewhere else, somewhere private where brothers could destroy each other without witnesses. Mrs. Chen, does Ethan have an office? A warehouse? Anywhere he might go? He has an apartment downtown, but I don't know the address. Can you find it? Mrs. Chen looked uncertain. Mr. Reed wouldn't want me involving you. Mr. Reed isn't here, and if we don't find him, he might not come back. Ava grabbed the older woman's shoulders. Please, I need that address. Something in Ava's face must have convinced her. Mrs. Chen nodded and pulled out her phone again, scrolling through contacts with efficient movements. Here, Ethan's emergency information. The apartment is listed. She showed Ava the screen. Ava memorized the address and ran back inside to change. Jeans, sweater, sneakers. She grabbed her phone and the car keys she'd seen hanging in the kitchen, one of the staff vehicles. Nothing fancy, but it would work. Where are you going? Mrs. Chen called as Ava headed for the garage. To stop Logan from doing something he can't take back. The drive downtown took 20 minutes that felt like hours. Ava had barely driven in the past month, hadn't needed to, hadn't been allowed to. The streets felt foreign and too fast, but she pushed through morning traffic with single-minded focus. Ethan's building was sleek glass and steel, the kind of place where you needed a code just to get into the parking garage. Ava pulled up to the entrance and rolled down her window as a security guard approached. Can I help you? I'm here to see Ethan Reed. It's an emergency. The guard checked his tablet. You're not on his visitor list. I'm his sister-in-law. Please, it's urgent. Something in her voice must have registered as genuine panic. The guard hesitated, then picked up a phone. Let me call up. He dialed, waited. His expression shifted to concern. No answer, he said. But there was another visitor about an hour ago. Didn't sign in, just pushed past the desk. We've been trying to reach Mr. Reed to verify. Ava didn't wait to hear the rest. She parked illegally and ran for the building entrance. The guard shouted something behind her, but she ignored him, hitting the elevator button repeatedly until the doors opened. 12th floor. Ethan's apartment was 12C according to the information Mrs. Chen had given her. The elevator climbed with agonizing slowness while Ava's heart tried to beat its way through her rib cage. The doors opened. Ava ran down the hallway, checking numbers until she found 12C. The door was ajar. Every instinct Ava had screamed at her to turn around, call the police, let someone else handle this. But Logan was in there. She knew it the way you know things in dreams, with absolute irrational certainty. She pushed the door open. The apartment was trashed, furniture overturned, glass shattered across expensive hardwood. And in the living room, surrounded by the wreckage of what looked like a fight, stood Logan and Ethan. Logan had a gun pointed at his brother's head. Logan, don't! Ava's voice came out steadier than she felt. Both men turned to look at her. Ethan's face was bruised, his lips split. Logan's hands were shaking, the gun wavering. Get out of here, Ava, Logan said. No. She stepped into the apartment, her shoes crunching on broken glass. Put the gun down. He killed our father, he admitted it. I didn't have a choice. Ethan's voice was raw, desperate. You don't understand? Then make me understand. Logan's finger tightened on the trigger. Tell me why you murdered the man who raised us. Because he was going to kill you. The words exploded into the room like their own kind of violence. Logan froze. Ava's breath stopped. What? Logan whispered. Ethan's face crumpled. Dad found out about the deals you'd been making, the families you'd been negotiating with behind his back. He thought you were planning to take over, to push him out. Tears streaked down his face, mixing with blood. He was going to have you killed, Logan, his own son. I heard him on the phone setting it up. You're lying. I wish I was. Ethan took a shaking breath. I confronted him, begged him to reconsider, but you know how he was. Once he made up his mind, so you killed him. Logan's voice was hollow. I saved you. Ethan's voice rose. I chose you over him, my brother over my father, and I've been living with that choice every single day since. Silence fell, thick and suffocating. Ava watched Logan's face, saw belief and denial war behind his eyes. You should have told me, Logan said finally. How? Hey, Logan, I murdered Dad to save your life? How was I supposed to say that? Ethan wiped his face with the back of his hand. I thought I could hide it, make it look like a robbery gone wrong. But then you started investigating, and I couldn't let you find out. So I hired Vega to ask questions that would lead nowhere, to give you something to chase that wasn't the truth. But I found him anyway. You always do. Ethan's laugh was broken. You're just like Dad that way. You don't stop until you have all the answers. Logan lowered the gun slightly. His whole body was trembling now. Did he really order my death? Yes. And you have proof? In my safe. Phone records, emails, all of it. Ethan gestured to a painting on the wall. Right behind the Monet knockoff. Logan looked at Ava for the first time since she'd entered. His eyes were red-rimmed, devastated. Check it. Ava moved carefully around the broken furniture to the painting. Behind it was indeed a safe, the door hanging open. Inside were files, cash, and a phone. She pulled out the phone and brought it to Logan. He scrolled through with one hand, the gun still in the other. Ava watched his face as he read, saw the moment belief solidified, saw him break. The gun clattered to the floor. Logan's knees followed. He knelt in the middle of his brother's destroyed living room and made a sound that wasn't quite a sob, wasn't quite a scream, just pure anguish. Ethan dropped to his knees in front of him. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know what else to do. He was going to kill me, Logan said to no one. My own father. I couldn't let that happen. Ethan reached out hesitantly, then pulled Logan into an embrace. You're my brother. You're all I have left. They held each other while the morning light streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, two brothers who'd survived the worst thing a family could do to itself. Ava stood apart, feeling like an intruder in their grief. She picked up the gun carefully, safety on, she checked twice, and set it on the kitchen counter. Then she started picking up furniture, giving them privacy in the only way she could. Eventually, Logan pulled away. He wiped his face with his bandaged hands and stood, pulling Ethan up with him. We need to clean this up, Logan said, his voice hoarse. The security guard saw Ava come up. We don't have much time before building management comes to investigate. I'll take care of it. Ethan gestured to the destruction. I'll say I had a party that got out of hand. Pay for the damages. It won't be the first time. Logan nodded. Then, like he was fighting himself, he asked, What did you do with his body? Does it matter? Yes. Ethan's jaw worked. Cremated. Scattered the ashes in the ocean like he requested in his will. Everything was legal, above board. It's only murder if anyone knows it wasn't natural causes. Heart attack, Logan said dully. That's what the coroner ruled. I made sure of it. Another silence. Then Logan picked up the phone from where he'd dropped it. I'm keeping this, all of it, the proof. Why? Because one day I might need to remember that my father was a monster, that you did what you had to do. Logan looked at his brother. And because if you ever lie to me again, if you ever betray me, I'll use it to destroy you. It wasn't forgiveness, but it wasn't murder either. Ava supposed that was the best they could hope for. Understood, Ethan said quietly. Logan turned to Ava. Let's go home. The drive back was silent. Logan sat in the passenger seat staring out the window while Ava navigated traffic with white-knuckled focus. She wanted to say something, offer comfort, but what words existed for this? Your brother killed your father to save you from your father killing you. Hallmark didn't make a card for that. When they pulled into the estate, Mrs. Chen was waiting on the front steps. She took one look at Logan's face and asked no questions, just ushered them inside and disappeared to make tea no one would drink. Logan went straight to his study. Ava followed, unable to leave him alone even though every instinct said to give him space. He stood in front of the murder board. The photos, the red strings, all his careful investigation that had led to the worst possible truth. With one violent motion, he ripped it down. Photos scattered across the floor like snow. Logan, he was going to kill me. Logan's voice was barely audible. My father looked at me and decided I wasn't worth keeping alive. You don't know that for certain. Ethan could be lying. He's not. Logan turned to face her, and his expression was shattered. I know he's not because it makes sense. All those times Dad criticized me, questioned my decisions, said I was getting too ambitious for my own good. He wasn't trying to teach me. He was warning me. Ava crossed the room and did something she'd never done before. She took Logan's hand. I'm sorry. Don't be. You tried to stop me, told me to wait, to think. Logan's fingers tightened around hers. I should have listened. You didn't know. I should have. He looked down at their joined hands like he'd just noticed them. Why are you here, Ava? You should be running, getting as far from this family as possible. Where would I go? Anywhere. I'd release you from the contract, give you money to start over. You don't have to stay in this. He gestured at the destroyed board, at everything it represented. This nightmare. Ava should say yes, should take the out he was offering and never look back. But standing there holding Logan's hand, seeing him more vulnerable than she'd ever imagined possible, she couldn't do it. I'm not leaving, she said. Why not? Because you need someone, and right now I'm all you've got. Logan stared at her for a long moment. Then he pulled her into an embrace that had nothing to do with romance and everything to do with survival. He held on like she was a life raft, and Ava let him, her arms wrapping around his back. They stood like that until the shaking stopped, until Logan could breathe without his chest hitching. When he finally pulled away, his eyes were dry but raw. Thank you, he said. For what? For not leaving. For giving a damn when you have every reason not to. Logan released her and stepped back, putting distance between them again. I need to sleep. I haven't since... I can't remember. Go. I'll tell Mrs. Chen you're not to be disturbed. Logan nodded and left, his footsteps heavy on the stairs. Ava waited until she heard his bedroom door close, then started picking up the photos from the floor. Marcus Reed stared up at her from a surveillance photo. Handsome, powerful, the kind of man who probably never questioned his right to make life-and-death decisions about his own children. Ava crumpled the photo and threw it in the trash. The next few days were strange and quiet. Logan barely left his room. When he did emerge, he looked like a ghost, hollow-eyed, moving through the house like he'd forgotten how his body worked. He didn't eat, didn't talk, just sat in his study staring at nothing. Ava tried to give him space, but by the third day she couldn't take it anymore. She made a tray of food, simple things, soup and bread, and brought it to his study. You need to eat, she said, setting it on his desk. Logan didn't look up. Not hungry. I don't care. Eat anyway. He finally raised his eyes. Since when do you give me orders? Since you started wasting away like a Victorian maiden. Ava pushed the tray closer. Eat, or I'll force feed you, and I'm not gentle. The corner of Logan's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. You're stubborn. I'm practical. Dead husbands are bad for my situation. I'm not going to die. Then prove it. Eat the soup. Logan picked up the spoon and took a bite, more to appease her than from any actual hunger. But he took another bite. And another. By the time Ava left, the bowl was half empty. Small victories. On the fourth day, Ethan called. Ava answered because Logan refused to touch his phone. How is he? Ethan asked without preamble. Alive, barely eating, won't talk to anyone. Can I see him? Ava looked toward Logan's study. I don't know if that's a good idea. I need to talk to him. Things are happening. Business things. I need his input. What kind of things? Ethan hesitated. The kind that will get us both killed if we're not careful. Ava's stomach clenched. I'll ask him. She found Logan in his study, exactly where she'd left him an hour ago. Ethan wants to see you. No. He says it's important. Business. I don't care. Logan, I said no. His voice rose for the first time in days. I can't look at him right now. Can't pretend everything's fine when... He stopped, breathing hard. Just tell him no. Ava relayed the message. Ethan was quiet for a long time. Tell Logan that Victor Castellano is asking questions about Dad's death, about the timeline. His voice was tense. Tell him we need to get our story straight or everything falls apart. The call ended. Ava stood holding the phone, dread pooling in her stomach. She went back to Logan's study. Victor's asking questions about your father's death. Logan's head snapped up. What kind of questions? Ethan didn't say, just that you need to coordinate your story. Logan was on his feet instantly. The fog of grief burned away by immediate danger. Call Ethan back. Tell him to meet me here in an hour. and tell Mrs. Chen to make sure the staff is gone for the night." "Why?" "Because what we're about to discuss can't have witnesses." An hour later, Ethan arrived looking as wrecked as Logan. The brothers faced each other across Logan's desk like opposing generals, all the warmth from their embrace days ago frozen over. "Talk," Logan said. "Victor came to my apartment yesterday. Said he'd been reviewing Dad's financials and found some irregularities right before his death. Large cash withdrawals, meetings with people outside our normal circles." Ethan pulled out his phone and showed Logan something. "He thinks Dad was planning something, and he thinks I might know what." "What did you tell him?" "That I had no idea, that Dad kept his own counsel." Ethan pocketed the phone. "But he didn't believe me. He's going to keep digging." Logan was quiet for a moment, thinking. "The phone. The one with Dad's plans to have me killed. Does Victor know it exists?" "No. I wiped Dad's personal effects before the coroner came. That phone is the only evidence." "Then we destroy it." "Logan, we destroy it," Logan repeated harder. "It's the only thing connecting you to what happened. Without it, there's no proof. Just Victor's suspicions." Ethan looked uncertain. "What if we need it someday? What if someone else starts asking questions?" "Then we deal with it then. Right now, that phone is a liability." Logan held out his hand. "Give it to me." Ava watched the exchange from the doorway where she'd been standing unnoticed. She saw the moment Ethan made his decision, saw him pull the phone from his jacket and place it in Logan's palm. Logan looked at the device for a long moment. All the proof of his father's betrayal, of Ethan's impossible choice, contained in a few ounces of metal and glass. Then he dropped it on the floor and crushed it under his heel. The screen shattered. Logan ground it into the hardwood until nothing remained but fragments. "It's done," he said. Ethan's shoulders sagged with relief. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. This doesn't mean I forgive you. It just means I'm choosing survival over justice." Logan's eyes were cold. "But we're not done dealing with this. Victor won't stop with vague suspicions. We need a plan." They spent the next 2 hours strategizing. Ava listened from her corner, absorbing the way these men talked about murder and cover-ups like business decisions. How they calculated risks and exposures with the same efficiency someone might use to plan a merger. Finally, Ethan left. Logan stood at the window watching his brother's car disappear down the driveway. "You heard all that," he said, without turning around. "I did." "And?" Ava moved to stand beside him. "And I'm realizing that staying in this family might have been a mistake." "Probably." Logan glanced at her. "But you're still here." "For now." They stood in silence, watching the sun set over the gardens. Somewhere in the house, a clock chimed, the normal sounds of a normal evening. Except nothing about this was normal. "I need to ask you something," Logan said finally, "and I need you to be honest." "Okay." "That night, when I came to your room after finding Vega, why didn't you run? You could have grabbed the car keys and disappeared while I slept. Why did you stay?" Ava thought about her answer carefully. "Because you looked like you were drowning, and I know what that feels like." "When have you been drowning?" "Most of my life." She turned to face him. "When my mom died, I went into the foster system, bounced between homes for years before the Carters took me in. And every single day I felt like I was barely keeping my head above water. Like if I stopped swimming for even a second, I'd sink." Logan listened without interrupting. "You get good at reading people when you're in survival mode," Ava continued. "You learn to spot the dangerous ones, the ones who want to hurt you. And you were hurt that night, Logan. Not dangerous, just hurt. So I stayed. That was stupid. Probably. But I'm still here, so." Logan's expression softened slightly. "You're tougher than you look." "I have to be." Another silence. Then Logan said, "I meant what I said before. If you want out, I'll release you. No conditions. You can go back to your life." "What life? My father's still in debt to your family? I'm still trapped by the same contract that brought me here." Ava crossed her arms. "Unless you're planning to forgive that too." "I could." The offer hung between them. Freedom. A way out of this gilded cage. Ava should take it, should run and never look back. Instead, she said, "Ask me again in a month, when we know if Victor's going to be a problem." Logan nodded slowly. A month. They shook on it like business partners, and Ava tried to ignore the way her heart sped up when his hand closed around hers. The next week was tense. Victor didn't contact them directly, but his presence was felt in small ways. Questions asked to other family members, requests for old financial records. The slow, methodical investigation of a man who suspected something but couldn't prove it. Logan handled it by throwing himself into work. He was gone before sunrise, home after midnight. When Ava saw him, he looked exhausted but focused. The grief had been packed away somewhere she couldn't see. Ethan came by twice, both times for late-night meetings in Logan's study. Ava didn't eavesdrop. She'd learned that lesson. But she could hear the tension in their voices through the walls. On Thursday night, 10 days after the confrontation in Ethan's apartment, Ava woke to raised voices. She grabbed a robe and crept into the hallway. Light spilled from under Logan's study door, and she could hear him arguing with someone. "Can't prove anything." That was Logan, angry. "I don't need proof. I need truth." Victor's voice, calm and implacable. "And I know you're hiding something." Ava's pulse quickened. She moved closer to the door, pressing her ear against the wood. "My father died of a heart attack," Logan said. The coroner confirmed it. "Whatever you think you found, I found gaps, inconsistencies, security footage that's missing from that night, phone records that don't match the timeline." Victor's voice hardened. "And I found large payments to Antonio Vega right before he conveniently disappeared." Silence. "Then, you're reaching." "Am I? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like someone wanted your father dead, and the most likely suspect is standing right in front of me." "Get out of my house." "Gladly. But this conversation isn't over, Logan. I'm going to find out what really happened, and when I do—" The door opened. Ava barely had time to step back before Victor emerged, his face set in grim determination. He saw her standing there in her robe and stopped. "Mrs. Reed, you should go back to bed. This doesn't concern you." "Like hell it doesn't." The words came out before Ava could stop them. "This is my house, my family. Everything here concerns me." Victor's eyebrows rose. "Interesting. Your husband keeps you very separate from business matters." "My husband is protective. Or hiding something." Victor studied her face. "Do you know what really happened to Marcus Reed, Mrs. Reed?" Ava forced herself to meet his eyes. "He had a heart attack. That's all I know." "And you believe that?" "I believe my husband." The lie came easier than she'd expected. "Whatever conspiracy you're chasing, you won't find it here." Victor smiled, but it wasn't friendly. "We'll see." He left. Ava watched him go, her heart hammering, then turned to find Logan standing in his study doorway. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "Yes, I did." "Why?" "Because he was threatening you, and like I said, we're family now. For better or worse." Logan looked at her like he was seeing someone new. "You just lied to a very dangerous man." "I've lied to dangerous men before. I'll probably do it again." Ava pulled her robe tighter. "Is he going to be a problem?" "Yes." "Can you handle it?" "I don't know." Logan ran a hand through his hair. "He's not going to stop, not until he has answers." "Then maybe you need to give him some." Ava leaned against the door frame. "Not the truth, just a truth he can believe." Logan studied her. "What did you have in mind?" "I don't know yet, but we'll figure it out." She yawned. "Tomorrow, when it's not 3 in the morning." She went back to bed, but sleep wouldn't come. Her mind kept turning over the problem of Victor Castellano, how to satisfy his suspicions without revealing the truth, how to protect Logan and Ethan without making herself complicit in murder. Because that's what this was, wasn't it? She was helping cover up Marcus Reed's death, making her an accessory after the fact at minimum. Ava stared at her ceiling and wondered when exactly she'd crossed the line from victim to accomplice. The answer came 3 days later in the middle of an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Ava was in the library reading when Mrs. Chen found her. "There's a gentleman here to see you, dear. Says he's a friend of your father's." Ava's blood went cold. "What's his name?" "He didn't say. Just asked for you specifically." Every instinct screamed danger, but Ava stood, smoothed her shirt, and followed Mrs. Chen to the front parlor. The man waiting there was in his 60s, well-dressed, with kind eyes that didn't match the tension in his shoulders. He stood when Ava entered. "Mrs. Reed, thank you for seeing me. Who are you?" "My name is James Fletcher. I'm a private investigator. Your father hired me 3 weeks ago." The room tilted. "Hired you for what?" "To make sure you're safe." Fletcher's expression softened. "Robert was worried. The marriage happened so quickly, and he hasn't been able to see you. He wanted to make sure you weren't being harmed." Ava's throat tightened. Her father had spent money he didn't have on a private investigator. For her. "I'm fine," she managed. "As you can see." "Are you?" Fletcher pulled out a small notebook. "Because from what I've observed, you rarely leave the house. You have no contact with friends or family except monitored phone calls. Your husband has known criminal connections. That doesn't sound fine to me, Mrs. Reed." "It's complicated." "I'm sure it is." Fletcher tucked the notebook away. "But here's what I need to know. Are you staying in this marriage because you want to, or because you're afraid of what will happen if you leave?" The question landed like a punch. Ava opened her mouth to lie, to protect Logan, to maintain the facade. Instead, she heard herself say, "Both." Fletcher nodded like he'd expected that answer. "Then you need to know something. Your father's debt, the one that supposedly led to this marriage, it was paid off 2 weeks ago." "What?" "Someone made a payment to the creditors. Anonymous wire transfer. The debt is cleared." Fletcher watched her face carefully. "Which means the contract that bound you to Logan Reed is void. You're free to leave anytime you want." The words didn't make sense. Couldn't make sense. "Who paid it?" "I don't know. The transfer was routed through several offshore accounts. Whoever did it didn't want to be traced." Fletcher handed her a business card. "But I wanted you to know. You have options, Mrs. Reed. You're not as trapped as you think." He left, and Ava stood alone in the parlor holding his card like a winning lottery ticket. The debt was paid. She could leave. So why did that thought feel less like freedom and more like abandonment? Ava stood in the empty parlor long after Fletcher left, turning his business card over and over in her hands. The numbers blurred as her eyes refused to focus. Free. The word echoed in her head like a gunshot in an empty room. She could pack a bag right now, walk out the front door, never look back. So why weren't her feet moving? She found Logan in the garage of all places, bent over the open hood of one of his cars. He had grease on his hands and looked more human than she'd seen him in weeks. "I didn't know you worked on cars," she said. Logan glanced up, surprise flickering across his face. "My father thought it was beneath me, which made me want to do it more." He wiped his hands on a rag. "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." Ava held out the business card. "A private investigator came to see me today. My father hired him." Logan's expression shuddered immediately. He took the card, read it, then looked back at her. "What did he want?" "To make sure I was safe. To tell me that—" Her voice caught. "The debt's been paid, Logan. Someone cleared my father's account 2 weeks ago. The contract is void." The silence stretched so long Ava thought she might scream just to break it. Logan set the card down on the car's fender with careful precision. "I know," he said finally. The admission hit her like cold water. "You knew?" "I paid it." Ava's brain stuttered. "What?" 3 weeks ago. Anonymous transfer through offshore accounts so it couldn't be traced back to me." Logan picked up the rag again, methodically cleaning grease from under his nails. "I was going to tell you eventually." "Eventually?" Ava's voice rose. "You freed me 3 weeks ago and just decided not to mention it?" "I was waiting for the right time." "The right time for what? To see if I'd figure it out on my own?" Anger flooded through her, hot and sharp. "I've been living here thinking I had no choice, thinking I was trapped. And you just let me believe that?" "You weren't ready." Logan finally met her eyes. "If I'd told you the day after I learned the truth about my father, about Ethan, you would have run, and you would have taken the weight of all those secrets with you. So you kept me here, a prisoner who didn't know the door was unlocked. I kept you safe." Logan's voice hardened. "Victor's circling. Other families are watching to see if we look weak. If you'd left right when everything was falling apart, people would have asked questions, would have wondered what you knew." So this was about protecting yourself. This was about protecting both of us. Logan threw the rag down. Buffets. You think I wanted to keep lying to you? You think I enjoyed watching you walk around this house like you were serving a sentence? Then why didn't you tell me? Because somewhere in the past month, you stopped being just a contract. The words exploded out of him. You became someone who gave a damn. Someone who held me together when I was falling apart. Someone who lied to Victor Castellano to protect me even though you barely knew what you were protecting. His hands clenched into fists. And I didn't want you to leave. The confession hung between them, raw and honest. Ava's anger wavered. That's not fair, she said quietly. I know. You should have told me anyway. I know. I should leave right now, pack my bags and never come back. You should. Logan's eyes were dark, intense. But you won't. How do you know? Because you're still here. Because you could have walked out with Fletcher and you didn't. He moved closer, and Ava's breath caught. Because something's changed, for both of us. He was right. Ava knew he was right, and she hated it. Hated that she'd started to see Logan as more than her jailer. Hated that she'd begun to care whether he ate, whether he slept, whether he survived the mess his family had become. I need time, she said, to think, to figure out what I actually want without you manipulating me. I'm not manipulating you. Yes, you are. You just admitted it. Ava backed toward the garage door. I'm going out. Don't follow me. She grabbed keys to one of the staff cars and drove with no destination in mind. Just drove until the estate was far behind her, and the city sprawled ahead, full of people living normal lives with normal problems. She ended up at a coffee shop in a neighborhood she didn't recognize, ordered something with too much syrup, and sat in a corner booth staring at her phone. Fletcher's number was saved in her contacts now. She could call him, tell him she wanted to leave. He'd probably help. Instead, she called her father. Ava? Robert's voice was thick with sleep. It's 2 in the afternoon. Are you okay? When did you hire a private investigator? Silence. Then, he found you. He found me. And he told me the debt's been paid. Ava's voice cracked. Dad, you didn't have to do that. I was handling it. You were sacrificing yourself. That's different. Robert's voice strengthened. I got a job, sweetheart. 2 jobs, actually. Night security and weekend warehouse work. I've been saving every penny. When I had enough, I hired Fletcher to make sure you were safe. Tears burned Ava's eyes. You don't have that kind of money. I borrowed some. Not from dangerous people this time. From the church fund, with permission. I'm paying it back. He paused. Fletcher said you seem okay. That Reed isn't hurting you. Is that true? Ava thought about Logan's face when he'd confessed to paying the debt. The vulnerability underneath all that control. It's complicated, she said. Do you want to come home? The question should have been easy, should have had an immediate yes. Instead, Ava found herself hesitating. I don't know what I want, she admitted. Then take your time figuring it out. Robert's voice gentled. But know that you have a home here. Always. No matter what you decide. They talked for a few more minutes. Surface things. Safe things. When Ava hung up, she felt more confused than ever. She stayed at the coffee shop for 2 hours, watching people come and go, couples holding hands, mothers with strollers, teenagers laughing over shared phones, regular people living regular lives. She'd been one of them once, before the debt, before the wedding, before Logan Reed had become someone she couldn't quite hate anymore. When she finally drove back to the estate, the sun was setting. She found Mrs. Chen in the kitchen preparing dinner. Mr. Reed has been asking about you, the older woman said. He seemed worried. Where is he? His study. Ava climbed the stairs feeling like she was walking to an execution. Logan's study door was open. He stood at the window silhouetted against the dying light. I'm back, Ava said from the doorway. Logan turned. I wasn't sure you would be. I wasn't either. They looked at each other across the room. Finally, Logan said, I meant what I said earlier, about not wanting you to leave. But that's my problem, not yours. You're free, Ava, legally, contractually, in every way that matters. Except one. What? Victor thinks we're married, really married. If I leave now, he'll wonder why. He'll investigate, and eventually he'll find something that leads him to the truth about your father. Ava stepped into the room. You need me here, at least until Victor stops being a threat. Logan's expression was unreadable. That could take months. I know. You're choosing to stay. I'm choosing to help you survive. There's a difference. Ava moved closer. But I have conditions. Name them. No more lies. About anything. I don't care how bad the truth is. I want to hear it. Done. And I want real access. To your business. To what's happening. I can't help if I'm kept in the dark. Logan hesitated. That's dangerous. So is lying to Victor Castellano, but I did it anyway. Ava crossed her arms. You said I stopped being just a contract, so stop treating me like one. A long pause. Then Logan nodded. Okay, full transparency. Starting now? Starting now. Logan gestured to the chair across from his desk. Sit. There's a lot you need to know. For the next hour, Logan laid it all out. The family business, what was legitimate, what wasn't, the rivalries with other organizations, the power structure that kept them all from tearing each other apart, and Victor's role as the family's consigliere, the advisor who'd served Marcus Reed for 20 years and now questioned everything about his death. Victor's not going to stop, Logan said. He's too smart, too thorough. Eventually he'll find something that doesn't add up. Then we need to give him a different answer, something that satisfies his investigation without revealing what really happened. Ava leaned forward. What if there was another suspect? Someone with motive to kill your father who isn't you or Ethan? Like who? I don't know. But you must have enemies. Your father must have made someone angry enough to want him dead. Logan was quiet, thinking. There's a family in the north, the Morellis. Dad was negotiating territory with them when he died. The talks weren't going well. Could they have done it? It's possible, but there's no evidence. Then we create some. The words came out before Ava fully thought them through. Not real evidence, just enough to point Victor in their direction. Logan stared at her. You're suggesting we frame an innocent family for murder. I'm suggesting we redirect a dangerous investigation away from the truth. Ava met his gaze. Unless you have a better idea? He didn't. They both knew it. I'll talk to Ethan, Logan said finally. See what we can put together. But Ava, if we do this, there's no going back. You'll be complicit in everything. I'm already complicit. I lied to Victor, remember? That was different. That was self-preservation. Same as this. Ava stood. We do what we have to do to survive. That's the world you live in, right? That's the world we live in now, Logan corrected. If you're staying, the weight of that settled over her. We, not you, not me, we. I'm staying, Ava said. At least for now. Over the next week, Logan and Ethan worked on building a case against the Morellis. Ava watched from the sidelines as they manufactured evidence, carefully doctored financial records, fake communications, a trail of breadcrumbs that led nowhere but looked convincing enough to satisfy a suspicious investigation. It was terrifying how good they were at it. You've done this before, Ava said one night, watching Logan manipulate dates on a ledger. Many times. He didn't look up. Welcome to the family business. Ethan visited more frequently now, and the tension between the brothers had eased into something workable. Not forgiveness, that might never come, but a functional partnership built on mutual survival. She's getting good at this, Ethan commented one night, nodding toward Ava. She'd been the one to suggest adding a witness statement to their manufactured evidence. Too good, Logan said, but there was something almost like pride in his voice. Ava wasn't sure how to feel about that, about becoming someone who could plot and scheme with the same ease as men who'd been raised in this world. Part of her was horrified. Another part recognized that she'd always had this capability. Survival had just required different skills before. On Thursday, they were ready. Logan called Victor and requested a meeting. I've been doing some investigating of my own, Logan said when Victor arrived. And I think I know who killed my father. Victor's expression sharpened. I'm listening. Logan laid out their fabricated case. The Morellis had motive, territory disputes. They had opportunity. One of their enforcers had been in the area the night Marcus died. And now, Logan claimed, he'd found financial records showing payments to Antonio Vega from a Morelli account. It was all lies. Beautiful, convincing lies. Victor examined the documents with the careful attention of someone who'd spent decades spotting deception. Ava held her breath, waiting for him to call them out. Instead, he nodded slowly. This is compelling. I thought so. Why didn't you bring this to me sooner? Because I wanted to be sure. Logan's voice was steady. I couldn't accuse another family without proof. Victor studied him for a long moment. And what do you want to do with this information? Nothing yet. I need your advice on how to proceed. Logan leaned back in his chair. If we move against the Morellis without proper preparation, we risk war. You risk war either way. Victor gathered the documents. Let me review these more thoroughly, see if there are other connections I can find. After Victor left, Ava released the breath she'd been holding. He believed it. For now, Logan rubbed his face with both hands. But Victor's thorough. If he digs too deep, he'll realize the evidence is manufactured. Then we make sure he doesn't dig too deep. Ethan had been quiet through the whole meeting, watching from near the window. We feed him more information, keep him focused on the Morellis until he's convinced. That's a lot of lying, Ava said. That's survival, Ethan corrected. You said it yourself. She had, and now she was living it. The next few days were tense. Victor called twice with follow-up questions. Each time, Logan had answers ready, more manufactured evidence, more carefully constructed lies. Ava watched him navigate the deception with the skill of someone who'd been trained for it since birth. On Saturday night, Ava couldn't sleep. She wandered downstairs to find Logan in his study, as usual. He looked exhausted. You should rest, she said. Can't. Too many things could go wrong. Ava sat down across from him. Can I ask you something? Always. Do you ever feel guilty about the lying, the manipulation? Logan was quiet for a long moment. Every day? But guilt doesn't change what needs to be done. How do you live with that? Poorly. He smiled, but it was sad. I drink too much. Sleep too little. Avoid mirrors because I don't like what I see. His eyes met hers. But I'm still here, still fighting. Because the alternative is worse. What's the alternative? Letting people like Victor destroy what's left of my family. Letting my father's legacy, the good parts, not just the violence, disappear. Logan's voice softened. Letting you get hurt because I couldn't protect you. The last part caught Ava off guard. I can protect myself. I know. You've proven that, but I still... He stopped, shaking his head. Never mind. No, say it. I care about you. The words came out rough, like they hurt. More than I should, more than is smart. And I know that's probably the last thing you want to hear. It's not. Logan's head snapped up. What? It's not the last thing I want to hear. Ava's heart hammered. I've been trying not to care about you. Trying to remember that this is temporary, that I'm leaving eventually. But then you look at me like you're seeing me. Not the contract or the convenient cover story. Me. I do see you. Logan stood, came around the desk. I see someone strong, someone brave, someone who walked into hell and decided to stay because it was the right thing to do. It wasn't the right thing. It was the practical thing. It was both. They stood close enough that Ava could feel the heat coming off him, close enough that she could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight he carried. This is a bad idea, she whispered. Terrible idea. We definitely shouldn't. Logan kissed her anyway. Or maybe she kissed him. Later, Ava wouldn't be sure who moved first. But suddenly, his mouth was on hers, and her hands were in his hair, and everything else disappeared. The kiss was desperate, hungry, months of tension finally breaking. Logan's hands found her waist, pulling her closer. Ava made a sound she'd never made before, something between a gasp and a plea. He pulled back, breathing hard. We should stop. Probably. This complicates everything. I know. Ava. She kissed him again, and this time he didn't pull away. They stumbled toward the desk, knocking papers to the floor. Logan lifted her onto it, and she wrapped her legs around his waist. And for the first time in months, Ava felt like she could breathe. They broke apart eventually, foreheads pressed together, both trembling. That was, Logan started. A mistake, Ava finished. Yeah. But neither of them moved. They stayed tangled together in the wreckage of Logan's desk, breathing each other's air, and Ava knew with absolute certainty that this changed everything. We can't do this again, she said. Agreed. It's too complicated. Way too complicated. So we'll just pretend it didn't happen. Absolutely. Logan kissed her again, softer this time, sweeter, and Ava kissed him back because apparently she was incapable of making smart decisions anymore. When they finally separated, Logan helped her down from the desk. They stood in the study surrounded by scattered papers, not quite looking at each other. I should go to bed, Ava said. Good idea. You should too. I will, soon. Ava made it to the door before turning back. Logan stood exactly where she'd left him, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. For what it's worth, she said, I care about you too. She left before he could respond, practically running to her room. Once inside, she locked the door and leaned against it, her lips still tingling, her heart racing. What had she done? Sleep didn't come easy. When it finally did, Ava dreamed of Logan's hands on her waist, his mouth against hers, the way he'd looked at her like she was precious instead of convenient. She woke to her phone ringing, Fletcher's number. Mr. Fletcher? Mrs. Reed. His voice was tight. I'm calling to give you a heads up. Your father's apartment was broken into last night. Ava shot upright. Is he okay? He's fine. Wasn't home at the time. He was working his night shift, but the place was torn apart. They were looking for something. Looking for what? I don't know, but I've been asking questions about the Reed family, about your marriage. It's possible I attracted the wrong kind of attention. Fletcher paused. Mrs. Reed, I think you should be very careful. Whatever you've gotten involved in, I know. Ava's voice was hollow. I know exactly what I'm involved in. She hung up and sat on the edge of her bed, processing. Someone had broken into her father's apartment. Someone who wanted to know what he knew, which meant someone was watching, investigating, trying to find weaknesses in Logan's carefully constructed life. Ava dressed quickly and went to find Logan. He was in the kitchen drinking coffee, looking like he hadn't slept at all. When he saw her face, he set down his cup. What's wrong? My father's apartment was broken into last night. Logan's expression went cold. Was he hurt? No. But Fletcher thinks it's connected to his investigation into you, into us. Who knows Fletcher was investigating? I don't know. Maybe no one. Maybe everyone. Ava's hands were shaking. Logan, my father's not safe. If someone's targeting him to get to me, I'll handle it. Logan pulled out his phone. I'll send security to watch his place. Make sure he's protected. That'll just make it obvious we're involved. I don't care. He's not getting hurt because of me. Logan was already dialing. I'll make it look like random protection, community security or something. He won't even know it's there. While he made arrangements, Ava paced the kitchen. Everything was falling apart. Victor's investigation. Her father in danger. And now she'd complicated things further by kissing Logan like the world was ending. Maybe it was. Done, Logan said, pocketing his phone. Your father will have round-the-clock surveillance. If anyone comes near him, we'll know. Thank you. Don't thank me. This is my fault. Logan moved closer. Everything that's happened to you since the wedding, it's all because of me. I made my choices. Did you, or did I manipulate you into staying? His voice was rough. Last night, that shouldn't have happened. I took advantage. No, Ava cut him off. You didn't take advantage. I wanted it. She stopped, the admission catching in her throat. I wanted you. Logan stared at her. Ava, don't. Don't tell me it was a mistake or that we can't or shouldn't. She moved closer. I know all that. I know this is temporary. I know I'm leaving eventually, but right now, in this moment, I'm here. And I'm choosing this. Choosing what? You. However long it lasts. Logan cupped her face with both hands, his touch gentle. You deserve better than this. Better than me. Probably. But I stopped caring about what I deserve. Ava leaned into his touch. I just care about surviving. And somehow you make that easier. He kissed her then, slow and deep, different from last night's desperation. This was a choice, a deliberate decision to fall into something neither of them could control. When they broke apart, Mrs. Chen was standing in the kitchen doorway holding a dish towel. She looked at them, then looked away. I'll come back later, she said, retreating. She's going to tell everyone, Ava said. Let her. Logan's thumb traced her cheekbone. I'm tired of hiding what I feel. What do you feel? I don't know yet, but I want to find out. They stood in the kitchen while morning light streamed through the windows, holding each other like they were the only solid things in a world that kept shifting. We need to be careful, Ava said finally. Victor can't know. If he thinks this is real, it is real. You know what I mean. If he thinks we're actually in love, he'll see it as weakness. Then we'll be careful in public. Well, Logan pressed his forehead to hers. But in here, in this house, I want to be honest about this, about us. Okay. Okay? Yeah. Ava smiled despite everything. Let's be honest. The next week was strange and terrifying and wonderful in equal measure. In public, nothing changed. Logan and Ava were the same careful couple they'd always been. Polite, distant, professional. But in private, behind closed doors, they were something else entirely. Logan would find excuses to touch her, a hand on her back as they passed in hallways, fingers brushing when he handed her coffee. Ava caught herself watching him during meetings, noticing the way his jaw tightened when he was stressed, the rare smile he saved for moments when he thought no one was looking. They didn't sleep together. Not in that way. But Logan started coming to her room at night, just to talk. They'd lie on opposite sides of her bed, a careful distance between them, and he'd tell her about his childhood, about the pressure of being Marcus Reed's heir, about his mother and the hole her death had left. Ava told him about foster care, about being invisible, about learning to read people's moods so she knew when to hide. You're not invisible anymore, Logan said one night. I know. You made sure of that. Is that a bad thing? Ava thought about it. I don't know yet. Well, Victor called on Friday with news. He'd found more evidence linking the Morellis to Marcus's death. Phone records that Logan and Ethan had manufactured, witness statements they'd carefully crafted. He was convinced. I think you're right about them, Victor said. The question is what we do about it. We build an airtight case, Logan said. Then we bring it to the council. Let them decide how to handle it. The council, the collective of family heads who governed the criminal underworld Logan inhabited. They met once a quarter to resolve disputes, negotiate territories, prevent wars. If Logan could convince them the Morellis were guilty, they'd handle the punishment, and Logan and Ethan would be clear. I'll set up a meeting, Victor said. 2 weeks. That gives us time to prepare. After he hung up, Logan looked at Ava. 2 weeks. Then this is over. And then what? Then you decide if you want to stay. The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Ava wanted to say she'd already decided that she was staying regardless, but 2 weeks was a long time. A lot could change. Let's survive the council meeting first, she said. Those 2 weeks felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. Every day brought new stress, preparing for the council, managing Victor's expectations, keeping Ethan calm. Logan was stretched thin, working 16-hour days, barely eating. Ava made it her mission to keep him functional. She brought food to his study, forced him to take breaks, dragged him to bed when he was too exhausted to argue. You're bossy, he complained one night. You're stubborn. We're perfect for each other. He said it like a joke, but something in his eyes was serious. Ava felt her heart do something complicated in her chest. Don't say things like that, she said. Why not? Because it makes this harder. What if I want it to be harder? Logan pulled her closer. They were in his room this time, her back against his chest, his arms wrapped around her waist. What if I want you to have reasons to stay? I already have reasons. Name one that isn't about survival. Ava was quiet for a long time. Then, you're the reason. Logan's arms tightened around her. He pressed his face into her neck, and Ava felt him breathe her in like she was oxygen. I don't deserve you, he said. Probably not, but I'm here anyway. They fell asleep like that, tangled together, and for the first time in months, Ava felt safe. The night before the council meeting, Ethan came over for a final strategy session. The three of them sat in Logan's study going over every detail, every possible question, every way their story could fall apart. "What if they don't believe us?" Ethan asked. "They will. The evidence is solid." Logan's confidence was absolute. "But what if they don't?" "Then we adapt." Logan looked at his brother. "We've survived worse. We'll survive this." Ethan nodded, but he looked uncertain. Scared, even. Ava understood. They were about to accuse a powerful family of murder based on evidence they'd fabricated. If it went wrong, people would die. Possibly them. After Ethan left, Ava found Logan standing at his study window staring into the dark. "You okay?" she asked. "No." His voice was rough. "I'm about to ruin innocent people to save guilty ones. I'm not okay with that. The Morellis aren't innocent. They've done plenty of terrible things. Just not this particular terrible thing." Logan turned to face her. "That's what we tell ourselves to sleep at night, right? That everyone in this world is dirty, so it doesn't matter who takes the fall." "I don't know." Ava moved closer. "I'm new to moral relativism." That got a small smile. "You're better at it than you think." "Is that a compliment?" "It's an observation." Logan pulled her into his arms. "What are you going to do? After tomorrow?" "That depends." "On what?" "On whether you still want me here." Logan pulled back to look at her. "Of course I want you here. Even though the contract's void, even though I don't have to stay?" "Especially because of that." His hands framed her face. "I want you to stay because you choose to, not because you're trapped." "What if I choose to leave?" Pain flickered across his face. "Then I'll let you go. I'll hate it, but I'll let you go." Ava kissed him, long and deep. When she pulled back, his eyes were dark. "I'm not leaving," she said. "Promise?" "I promise. At least not tonight." Logan carried her to bed, and this time when they fell asleep tangled together, it felt less like survival and more like choice. The council meeting was held in a warehouse on the edge of the city. Neutral ground. Ava wasn't allowed to attend. This was business, Logan explained. Family heads only. But she helped him prepare, straightening his tie, making sure he looked confident. "You'll be fine," she said. "You don't know that." "Yes, I do. You're Logan Reed. You've been preparing for this your whole life." He kissed her once, quick and hard. "I'll be back soon." "You better be." Logan left with Ethan, and Ava spent the next 3 hours pacing the house. Mrs. Chen tried to distract her with tea and conversation, but nothing helped. Every minute felt like an hour. Finally, she heard cars in the driveway. Ava ran to the front door and yanked it open. Logan stood on the steps, his expression unreadable. Behind him, Ethan looked shell-shocked. "Well?" Ava demanded. Logan's face broke into a smile, genuine, relieved. "They believed us. Every word." The tension drained out of Ava so fast she almost collapsed. "It's over?" "It's over. The council voted to handle the Morellis. Victor's satisfied. We're clear." Logan pulled her into his arms. "It's finally over." Ava hugged him back, feeling like she'd been holding her breath for weeks, and could finally exhale. They'd done it. They'd survived. That night, the house felt different, lighter. Like a weight had been lifted from the walls themselves. Ava found Logan in his study destroying the murder board, the new one he'd created to track the Morellis' fabrication. He tore down photos and crumpled notes with systematic thoroughness. "Need help?" she asked. "Almost done." Logan tossed the last of it into a trash bag. "I want it all gone. Every reminder of the past year." "The past year wasn't all bad." "No?" "You met me, didn't you?" Logan turned to face her, and his expression was soft. "Best thing that happened." "Even though I was a contract?" "Especially because you were a contract. Otherwise, I never would have had the guts to pursue you." He crossed the room and took her hands. "Ava Carter Reed, will you stay married to me?" The question caught her off guard. "What?" "The contract's void. The debt's paid. You could leave tomorrow and I'd have no legal recourse to stop you." Logan's thumb traced circles on her palm. "But I'm asking you to stay. Not because you have to, because you want to." "For how long?" "As long as you'll have me." He dropped to one knee and Ava's breath stopped. I know I did this backwards. I married you before I knew you, kept you prisoner when I should have set you free. But somewhere along the way, I fell in love with you, and I'm praying, that maybe you feel the same. Tears burned Ava's eyes. You love me? Completely, terrifyingly, in a way I didn't think I was capable of. Logan's voice shook. So I'm asking, will you stay? Will you be my wife for real this time? Ava thought about the scared girl who'd walked down that aisle a few months ago. Thought about everything that had happened since. The fear, the anger, the slowly building trust. The moment she'd realized Logan wasn't her enemy. The moment she'd fallen in love with him without meaning to. Yes, she said. I'll stay. Logan stood and kissed her, and it felt like starting over, like getting it right this time. I love you too, Ava whispered against his mouth. Even though you're bossy and controlling and a terrible cook. I never claimed to be perfect. Good, because I'm not either. They stood in the study holding each other while outside the window the world kept turning. Tomorrow would bring new problems, new challenges. But tonight, they had this, each other, a choice they'd both made. And that was enough. The morning after Logan's proposal, Ava woke to sunlight streaming through windows she'd stopped thinking of as prison bars. Logan was already awake, propped on one elbow watching her with an expression that made her heart stumble. That's creepy, she mumbled, still half asleep. You snore. I do not. You absolutely do. It's cute. He kissed her forehead. I have meetings all day. Damage control with the families affected by the Morelli situation. Will you be okay here? I've been okay here for months. I think I can handle one day. Ava stretched, then paused. Actually, I was thinking about calling my dad, asking him to visit. Logan went still. Here? Unless you don't want... No, I do. I want to meet him properly. Not as the man who bought his daughter, but as... He stopped, searching for words. As your husband, if that's okay. It's more than okay. But when Ava called Robert that afternoon, his response wasn't what she'd expected. Are you sure? Her father asked. Honey, I know you said things are better, but this whole situation, it's not normal. Marriage shouldn't start like this. I know it's not conventional. It's not safe. You married a criminal to clear my debt. Now you're telling me you love him? Robert's voice cracked. Ava, I think he's manipulated you. Made you believe you have feelings for him when really you're suffering from some kind of syndrome, like hostages get. The words stung more than they should have. I'm not a hostage, Dad. Then come home. Just for a few days. Get some distance. See if you still feel the same way when you're not living in his house. Ava looked around the bedroom. Logan's bedroom now, technically, since she'd been spending more nights here than in her own room. She tried to see it through her father's eyes. The expensive furniture, the locked gates, the guards who watched every entrance. It did look like a prison, even if it didn't feel like one anymore. I'll think about it, she said finally. That's all I'm asking. After they hung up, Ava sat on the edge of the bed feeling unmoored. Was her father right? Had she convinced herself she loved Logan because it was easier than admitting she was trapped? No. The debt was paid. The contract was void. She could leave any time. She was choosing to stay. Wasn't she? Logan found her an hour later, still sitting in the same spot, staring at nothing. What's wrong? He sat beside her, close but not touching, giving her space. My dad thinks you've brainwashed me. Logan was quiet for a long moment. Has he met me? I can barely get you to eat vegetables. I'm not exactly a master manipulator. Despite everything, Ava smiled. He wants me to come home, just for a few days. Then you should go. She turned to look at him. Really? Really, he's your father. He's worried. And honestly, Logan took her hand. He's not wrong to be concerned. This whole situation is insane. You married a stranger to save him. That stranger turned out to be someone who'd hurt you in the past. Then you stayed even after you were free to go. He squeezed her fingers. From the outside, it looks like textbook Stockholm Syndrome. But it's not. I know that. You know that. But he doesn't. Logan lifted her hand to his lips. So go. Spend a few days with your father, get some perspective, and if you decide you want to come back, when I come back, When you come back, he corrected, smiling slightly, I'll be here. Ava packed a bag that evening, which felt strange after months of having nowhere to go. She took casual clothes, her phone, the copy of Jane Eyre she'd been rereading. Logan watched from the doorway. You look like you're going to war, he commented. I'm going to convince my father I haven't lost my mind. Close enough. Ava zipped the bag. How long do you think it'll take? For him to believe you're okay, or for you to decide if you actually are? The question hit deeper than he probably meant it to. Both, I guess. Logan drove her himself, which surprised her. No driver, no security detail. Just the two of them in one of his less conspicuous cars, navigating evening traffic while the radio played songs neither of them listened to. You're quiet, Ava said. I'm thinking. About? About how much I'm going to hate sleeping alone. Logan glanced at her. I got used to you. The snoring. The way you steal all the blankets. The fact that you read until 2 a.m. with that tiny book light that you think doesn't bother me, but absolutely does. I can stop. Don't. I like it. All of it. His hand found hers. I like you, Ava Carter, even the annoying parts. It's Ava Reed now, technically. Is it? You planning to keep the name? Ava hadn't actually thought about it. The marriage had started as a transaction, a legal necessity, but now... Yeah, she said. I think I am. Logan's smile was bright enough to light the whole car. Robert's apartment was exactly as Ava remembered. Small, cluttered, full of mismatched furniture, and the smell of the coffee he drank by the gallon. He answered the door in his security guard uniform, having just gotten off shift, and pulled Ava into a hug that lasted a full minute. You're too thin, he said, pulling back to look at her. I'm the same weight I've always been. Then you've always been too thin. He looked past her to where Logan stood at the bottom of the steps. Mr. Reed, Mr. Carter. Logan stayed where he was, not presuming an invitation. Thank you for letting Ava visit. She doesn't need my permission. She's a grown woman. But Robert's tone wasn't friendly. You planning to come in, or are you just dropping her off? Ava looked between them, feeling the tension. Dad? Let him answer. Logan met Robert's gaze steadily. I'd like to come in, if that's all right. I'd like to talk to you. Apologize for... He gestured vaguely. Everything. Robert considered this. Then he stepped back from the door. Fine, but I'm armed and I know how to use it. Dad! What? He should know what he's walking into. But there was the faintest hint of humor in Robert's eyes. Inside, the three of them sat in awkward silence for approximately 10 seconds before Robert said, So, you bought my daughter. Logan didn't flinch. Yes, sir. I did. And you kept her locked in your house for months. I provided her with a safe place to live under difficult circumstances. You call that safe? The private investigator I hired found evidence of criminal activity, violence, all of which Ava was protected from. Logan leaned forward. Mr. Carter, I'm not going to insult your intelligence by pretending I'm a good man. I'm not. I've done things you'd be horrified by. But I have never, and would never, hurt your daughter. Then why marry her? Why not just pay the debt? Because I needed... Logan stopped, started again. I needed someone I could trust. Someone outside my world. And the marriage contract guaranteed she couldn't betray me. How romantic, Robert said dryly. It wasn't meant to be romantic. It was meant to be practical. Logan's eyes found Ava. I didn't expect to fall in love with her. Love. Robert said the word like it tasted bad. You've known her for what, 4 months? 3.5, but yes. Logan looked back at Robert. I know how this looks. I know you think I've manipulated her, but I'm asking you to trust that Ava is smart enough to know her own mind. She's survived things that would break most people. She's not some fragile thing I can bend to my will. No, Robert agreed, looking at his daughter. She's not, which is why I'm confused about why she's choosing to stay with you. That's what I'd like to know too, Logan said quietly. Both men turned to look at Ava. She felt the weight of their attention, the expectation that she'd explain herself, justify her choices. I'm staying because I want to, she said, not because I have to, not because I'm scared, Because somewhere between hating Logan and tolerating him, I started to actually see him. She looked at her father. He's not perfect. He's controlling and secretive and terrible at communicating. But he's also kind when he thinks no one's watching. He's loyal to the people he cares about. And he sees me as more than just the invisible girl who learned to hide. Sweetheart, I know you're worried. I know this isn't the life you wanted for me, but it's the life I'm choosing. Ava's voice strengthened. I spent years being invisible, years letting other people decide what I was worth. I'm done with that. Logan doesn't make me invisible, he makes me feel seen. Robert was quiet for a long time. Then he turned to Logan. If you hurt her, you'll kill me. I know. Get in line. Logan's smile was grim. My brother's ahead of you. Despite himself, Robert almost smiled. All right, I don't like this, but I'm not going to stand in Ava's way if this is what she wants. The tension eased slightly. Logan stood. I should go. Let you two catch up. He looked at Ava. I'll pick you up Sunday, if you still want to come back. I'll be ready. Logan left, and Ava was alone with her father for the first time in months. Robert immediately went to make coffee, his comfort ritual. When he came back with 2 mugs, he said, He really loves you. I know. Do you really love him? Ava thought about Logan's face when she'd defended him, the way he'd offered to leave, to give her space to choose, the way he'd looked at her father with respect, even though Robert had threatened him. Yeah, she said. I really do. Then I guess that's that. Robert sipped his coffee. But if anything changes, if you ever feel unsafe, you call me immediately. I will. I promise. They spent the next 3 days in a strange sort of limbo. Ava helped Robert around the apartment, went to the diner where she used to work and caught up with former coworkers. She slept in her old room and wore her old clothes and tried to remember what her life had been like before Logan. It felt small. Not bad, just smaller than what she had now. On Saturday, Fletcher called. Mrs. Reed, I wanted to update you on something. What's that? The break-in at your father's apartment. I did some digging. Turns out it was connected to the Morelli family. Ava's stomach dropped. The Morellis? They're under investigation by the council for the murder of Marcus Reed. Word is they're panicking, trying to figure out who set them up. Fletcher paused. I thought you should know, in case anyone comes asking questions. After he hung up, Ava sat very still, processing. The Morellis knew they'd been framed, which meant they were looking for who did it, which meant Logan and Ethan were in danger. She called Logan immediately. Fletcher just told me the Morellis are investigating. They know they were set up. I know. I got word this morning. Logan's voice was tight. We're handling it. How? You don't need to. Don't. Ava cut him off. Don't shut me out. I'm part of this now. A pause. Then, we're meeting with them tomorrow. Victor arranged a sit-down to let them present their case to the council. That's insane. They'll kill you. They'll try, but the council meeting is neutral ground. Violence isn't allowed. Logan didn't sound convinced. It'll be fine. You're lying. Yeah. Ava made a decision. I'm coming home. Tonight. Ava, you don't have to. I'm coming home. I'll be there in an hour. She packed quickly and told her father she needed to leave early. Robert looked worried, but didn't argue. He just hugged her tight and made her promise to be careful. I love you, Dad. Love you too, sweetheart. Call me when you get there. The drive back to the estate felt longer than it should have. Ava's mind raced with possibilities, each worse than the last. The Morellis weren't stupid. If they'd figured out they were framed, they'd eventually figure out who did it. And when they did, she pulled into the driveway to find every light in the house blazing. Cars lined the circular drive. Ethan's, Victor's, others she didn't recognize. Something was happening. Ava ran inside and followed voices to Logan's study. The door was open. Inside, Logan stood facing 5 men she'd never seen before, his expression carved from stone. Ethan was beside him, pale and tense. Victor stood off to the side, looking grim. Ava! Logan's eyes widened when he saw her. What are you doing here? I came home. She stepped into the room, taking in the scene. What's going on? One of the strangers, older, with silver hair and a face like granite, turned to look at her. You must be the wife. Ava Reed. I am. And you are? Thomas Morelli. The name hit like a punch. I'm here because your husband and his brother framed my family for a murder we didn't commit. The room went deadly silent. Ava's heart hammered, but she kept her face neutral. That's a serious accusation. It's a serious crime. Thomas moved closer, and Logan shifted to put himself between them. We've been investigating, following the trail of evidence that suddenly appeared linking us to Marcus Reed's death. And you know what we found? What? Nothing, because we didn't do it. His eyes were cold. But someone went to a lot of trouble to make it look like we did. Someone with access to high-level forgery. Someone who benefited from redirecting the investigation away from themselves. That's speculation, Logan said. Is it? Because I have a witness who says otherwise. Thomas gestured, and another man stepped forward holding a tablet. Antonio Vega. Before he disappeared, he made a video confession. Insurance, he called it, in case his employers decided he was a liability. The tablet screen showed Vega's bruised face. His voice was rough but clear. This is my confession. I was hired by Ethan Reed to ask questions about Marcus Reed's death. He paid me to create a trail that led nowhere, to distract from the real investigation. When Logan Reed found me, I told him what he wanted to hear, that the Morellis were involved. It was a lie. The Reeds killed Marcus. And then they framed us. The video ended. Silence crashed down like a physical weight. That's, Ethan started. Evidence, Thomas finished, which we're presenting to the council tomorrow, along with our own investigation showing every piece of evidence against us was fabricated. He looked at Logan. Your father's murder will be investigated properly this time. And when the truth comes out, your family will pay. The truth is complicated, Logan said carefully. The truth is you're murderers. Thomas's voice was ice. And you used us as scapegoats. That ends tomorrow. The Morellis left, their threat hanging in the air. The second the door closed, Ethan turned on Logan. We're dead. You know that, right? When the council sees that video. I know. Logan's face was gray. Victor, what are our options? Limited. Victor looked older than Ava had ever seen him. If the video is authenticated, if their evidence of fabrication is solid, the council will rule against you. At minimum, you'll be stripped of your territory. At worst, execution, Ethan finished, for both of us. There has to be something we can do, Ava said. All three men looked at her like they'd forgotten she was there. This isn't your problem, Logan said. Like hell it isn't. I helped build that case. I suggested framing them in the first place. Ava moved to stand beside Logan. So what's the play? What do we do? Victor studied her for a long moment. You tell the truth. Absolutely not, Logan said immediately. It's your only option. The council values honesty even when it's ugly. Victor's voice was firm. You go to them before the Morellis do. You confess everything. Marcus's plans to kill you, Ethan's actions, the fabricated evidence. You throw yourself on their mercy. They won't show mercy, Ethan said. They'll make an example of us. Maybe, but it's a better chance than lying and getting caught. Victor looked at Logan. You're Marcus Reed's son. That still carries weight. Some of the council members respected your father, even feared him. If you come forward with the truth, if you show you're not trying to hide, you might survive this. Logan was quiet for a long time. Then he looked at Ethan. What do you think? I think we're screwed either way, but at least this way, we control the narrative. Ethan's voice was hollow. Let's do it. Wait, Ava said. If you confess, won't the police get involved? This isn't just family business. This is actual murder. The council handles its own, Victor explained. As long as we keep it internal, the authorities won't interfere. That's how this world works. It was insane. All of it. An entire shadow legal system operating outside the law. But Ava had learned to accept insane things over the past few months. When's the meeting? She asked. Tomorrow, noon. Logan took her hand. You don't have to be there. Yes, I do. Ava, I'm your wife. For real now. That means I stand with you, even when it's hard. She squeezed his fingers. Especially when it's hard. Logan pulled her into his arms, holding on like she was the only solid thing in a crumbling world. I don't deserve you. We've established that multiple times. Ava pulled back to look at him. But you're stuck with me anyway. That night, they didn't sleep, just lay together in the dark while Logan told her everything, every detail of what had happened, what would happen tomorrow, what could go wrong. Ava listened and held him, and tried not to think about the possibility that this might be their last night together. If they decide to kill me, Logan said quietly, I need you to take the money I've set aside for you and disappear. There's an account in your name, offshore. Enough to live comfortably for the rest of your life. Stop. Ava, I said stop. She pressed her fingers to his lips. You're not going to die. We're going to get through this, together. You can't know that. Yes, I can. Because you're Logan Reed and you're too stubborn to die. She kissed him. And because I didn't survive months in this house just to lose you now. Logan kissed her back, and it felt like goodbye and hello and everything in between. The council met in the same warehouse as before. Ava wasn't allowed inside. This was family business, but she stood outside with Mrs. Chen and 3 security guards waiting. He'll be fine, Mrs. Chen said, but she didn't sound convinced. Ava didn't respond, just stared at the warehouse door and prayed to whatever higher power might be listening that she wouldn't lose Logan today. Inside the warehouse, Logan and Ethan stood before 7 men who represented the most powerful criminal families in the region. Thomas Morelli sat to one side with his evidence. Victor sat to the other with nothing but the truth. Before Mr. Morelli presents his case, Logan said, his voice carrying through the cavernous space, I'd like to address the council. The head councilman, an ancient man named Giovanni, who'd known Marcus Reed for 40 years, nodded. Proceed. Logan took a breath. Then he told them everything. He told them about Marcus's plan to kill him, about Ethan's impossible choice, about the fabricated evidence and the framing of the Morellis. He laid it all out with unflinching honesty, leaving nothing hidden. When he finished, the silence was absolute. You murdered your own father, Giovanni said finally. My brother murdered our father to save my life, Logan corrected. I didn't know until recently. And then you covered it up, framed an innocent family. The Morellis aren't innocent. But no, they didn't kill Marcus Reed. That's on us. Logan's voice was steady. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for understanding. My father was going to murder his own son. Ethan stopped him. Everything that came after was us trying to survive. By destroying another family's reputation, Thomas interjected. By making us look like murderers. I know, and I'm sorry, for what it's worth. Logan looked at him. I was wrong. We both were. And we're prepared to face the consequences. Giovanni exchanged looks with the other council members. They spoke in low voices for several minutes while Logan and Ethan waited, knowing their lives hung in the balance. Finally, Giovanni spoke. The council has deliberated. These are our terms. The evidence against the Morellis will be publicly retracted. Your family will issue a formal apology and provide financial compensation for the damage to their reputation. Logan nodded. Agreed. Additionally, you will forfeit 30% of your territory to the Morellis. Consider it reparation. 30%. That was significant. But Logan didn't hesitate. Agreed. As for the matter of Marcus Reed's death, Giovanni paused. We find that Ethan Reed acted in defense of his brother's life. While the method was extreme, it falls within the bounds of family protection. No further action will be taken. Ethan sagged with relief. Logan's eyes closed briefly. However, Giovanni continued, his voice hardening, the fabrication of evidence and the framing of another family cannot go unpunished. Logan Reed, as the head of your family, you bear responsibility for these actions. I understand. You will be placed on probation for 1 year. During that time, your business decisions will be reviewed by this council. Any misstep, any hint of dishonesty, and you will be removed from your position, permanently. Giovanni's eyes were steel. Do you accept these terms? It was lenient, shockingly so. Logan must have realized it too because his voice was thick when he said, I accept. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank your father's legacy. He served this council for 30 years. That buys you one chance. Giovanni stood. Don't waste it. The meeting ended. Logan and Ethan emerged from the warehouse looking exhausted but alive. When Logan saw Ava waiting, his entire face transformed. He crossed the parking lot in 5 strides and pulled her into his arms. It's over. We survived. I told you. Ava held him tight, breathing him in, too stubborn to die. They went home together, Logan, Ethan, Ava, and Victor, Mrs. Chen had prepared enough food to feed an army, and for the first time in months, the dining room felt warm. Happy, even. To surviving, Ethan said, raising his glass. To honesty, Victor added. To new beginnings, Logan said, looking at Ava. She raised her own glass. To family, however weird and complicated it gets. They drank, and Ava felt something settle inside her. This was her life now. This strange, dangerous, beautiful life she'd chosen. Over the next few months, things changed. Logan restructured his business, removing the illegal operations and focusing on legitimate investments. It wasn't perfect. Some things couldn't be made legal overnight, but it was progress. Ethan took over some of the territories they'd forfeited, working with the Morellis to establish new boundaries. The relationship was tense but functional. Thomas Morelli would never forgive them, but he could work with them. That was enough. Victor stayed on as advisor, helping Logan navigate the council's oversight. He'd softened toward Ava, even smiled at her occasionally. And Ava finally felt like herself. Not the invisible girl from Hamilton Prep, not the contract bride who'd traded her freedom for her father's safety. Just Ava, Logan's wife, her own person. 6 months after the council meeting, Logan surprised her with a trip. Just the two of them, no guards, no business. They flew to a small coastal town where nobody knew their names or cared about their past. On their second night, sitting on the beach watching the sunset, Logan said, I want to do this right. Do what right? Us, everything. He turned to face her. I know we're already married, but that was under duress. I want to do it again, a real wedding, with your father and our friends and vows we actually choose. Ava's throat tightened. You want to marry me again? Every day if you'd let me. Logan pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, nothing like the diamonds he'd given her before. Ava Carter Reed, will you marry me? Again? For real this time? She was crying now, happy tears streaming down her face. You're such a sap. Is that a yes? That's a yes, you idiot. Obviously, yes. Logan slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her while the sun set behind them, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The second wedding was small, just family and a few close friends. Robert walked Ava down an outdoor aisle, tears in his eyes. Ethan stood as Logan's best man. Mrs. Chen sobbed through the entire ceremony. And when the officiant asked if they took each other, both Logan and Ava answered without hesitation. I do. This time, the kiss lasted longer. This time, it meant everything. At the reception, Robert pulled Ava aside. You look happy. I am. Then I guess I was wrong. About him. About all of it. Robert smiled. I'm glad, sweetheart. You deserve to be happy. So do you, Dad. Ava hugged him. Thank you. For everything. For raising me. For trying to save me. For letting me make my own choices. That's what fathers do. He pulled back. Now go dance with your husband. He keeps looking over here like he's afraid I'm going to steal you back. Ava laughed and went to find Logan. He was talking with Ethan, but when he saw her, he immediately held out his hand. Dance with me? Always. They swayed together while the sun set and the music played and everyone they loved watched with smiles on their faces. Are you happy? Logan asked. Deliriously. Ava rested her head on his chest. Are you? More than I ever thought possible. He kissed the top of her head. Thank you. For what? For seeing past what I was. For choosing to stay. Logan's arms tightened around her. For saving me. We saved each other, Ava corrected. And that, more than anything else, was the truth. They danced until the stars came out, surrounded by people who'd become family. Not the family either of them had been born into, but the one they'd chosen. The one they'd fought for. Later, much later, when the party had ended and the guests had gone home, Logan and Ava stood on the balcony of their hotel room, looking out at the city lights. "What happens now?" Ava asked. "Whatever we want." Logan pulled her closer. "We build something new, something legitimate, something we can be proud of." "That sounds nice. It won't be easy. There'll be challenges, problems, days when we want to kill each other." "Probably," Ava smiled. "But we'll figure it out. Together?" "Together." They kissed under the stars. Two people who'd started as strangers forced together by circumstance and become something neither had expected. Partners, equals, home. The next morning, they woke tangled together in expensive sheets, sunlight streaming through the windows. Logan traced patterns on Ava's shoulder while she dozed, content and safe. "I love you," he whispered, thinking she was asleep. "I love you too," she whispered back. And for the first time in either of their lives, those words felt like a promise instead of a risk. They spent the next year building their new life. Logan officially transferred most of the family business to legitimate operations: real estate development, investment portfolios, consulting firms. Ethan helped, having discovered he actually enjoyed the legal side of things. Ava went back to school, finishing the degree she'd abandoned years ago. Logan supported her completely, even when it meant late-night studying and less time together. "You're brilliant," he'd say, reading over her shoulder. "Have I mentioned that?" "Only every day." "Well, it's true." They fought sometimes, about his tendency to overprotect, about her stubbornness, about stupid things like whose turn it was to load the dishwasher. But they also learned to talk through problems instead of burying them, learned to trust each other with the messy, complicated parts of themselves. Robert visited monthly, slowly warming to Logan. They'd never be best friends, but they found common ground in their love for Ava and their shared appreciation for terrible action movies. Victor retired finally, and Logan promoted someone younger to take his place. The council oversight ended after a year with a glowing review. The Morellis remained civil, if distant, and through it all, Logan and Ava built something real, a partnership based on choice, not obligation. Love earned through honesty and struggle, not demanded through contracts. 2 years after the second wedding, Ava found Logan in his study looking at something on his computer. When she came closer, she saw it was their wedding photos, both of them. The first ceremony where they'd looked like strangers, the second where they'd looked like they belonged together. "Which one's your favorite?" she asked. "The second, obviously." Logan pulled her onto his lap. "The first one, you looked terrified." "I was terrified." "And now?" "Now I'm home." Ava kissed him. Strange how that worked out. Not strange, lucky. Logan's hand found hers, his thumb brushing over her wedding ring. "I'm the luckiest man alive." Even with all the drama, the near-death experiences, the family dysfunction, especially because of that, he smiled. "We survived it together. That's worth more than easy ever could be." Ava settled against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, and knew he was right. Their story hadn't been simple or clean. It had been messy and painful and complicated, but it had been theirs. And in the end, that was all that mattered. Years later, when people asked how they met, Ava and Logan had developed a practiced response. Through family, it's complicated. And if pressed for details, they'd smile and change the subject, keeping their truth private. Because some stories were too wild to be believed, some beginnings too unconventional to explain. But the ending? The ending was simple. Two people who'd been forced together by circumstance had chosen to stay together by love. They'd built a life from the wreckage of impossible situations. They'd transformed a transaction into a partnership, a contract into a covenant. They'd found each other in the dark and decided to stay. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.